attention as the race. After dominating the early IndyCar season, his troubles began in the Meadowlands race. Rear-ended by Bobby Rahal, dejectedly he stood over his disabled racer. Then the high banks of the Michigan International Speedway and the worst injury of a 28-year career. And more valuable points are lost.
There's no question that the points are very important. The chase is really tight, obviously, and but points or no points, I think I'm medically and physically able to go back to work.
These two veterans from different hemispheres enter the Domino's Pizza 500 separated by a single point. They made hay while the sun shined. It rained in Elkhart Lake, and a dark cloud of injury kept Mario on the sidelines. Fittipaldi ignored a misfiring engine and produced a late race surge to fifth. Unser couldn't duplicate the feat, but his seventh-place finish produced this, a virtual second start on the points race. Essentially a three-way tie among legends who have accumulated 5 national and 3 world championships. Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Pocono International Raceway. I'm Larry Nuber. There has been some 11th hour drama this morning, late this morning here at Pocono. It involves Kevin Cogan and Michael Andretti. Jack Arute is down in the pits and has been covering the story.
Larry, early today, Kevin Cogan, Michael Andretti, and their entire party were departing from Andretti's summer cottage in the Poconos via a helicopter. As the helicopter took off, it hit some high-tension wires and went back down and had a crash. All of the people that were inside the helicopter, however, are all right. For Michael Andretti, however, there's been recurring back spasms, and there was some question as to whether he would start today's Domino's Pizza 500. He has been cleared by the CART official doctor, Dr. Steve Olvey. He's standing by the car, getting ready to strap himself in. There is no consideration for a relief driver, but badly shaken is Andretti and also Kevin Cogan. Let's go back upstairs to Larry Nuber.
Well, under the circumstances, very good news. We are here at Pocono for the third leg of the 1985 Triple Crown season for Indy cars. We're happy to welcome to our microphones today Gordie Johncock, a man who has won the Indianapolis 500 2 times. And up front here at the Pocono race today, there have been some nice surprises, including the return of Mario Andretti.
Well, yes, there has, Larry. There's several guys here that are not in too good a condition to run this race, but believe me, when they get out there on the racetrack and their mind gets on racing, they're going to forget about their injuries. I've experienced that myself.
Well, something else that Gordie has experienced over the past couple of seasons have been injuries. Rick Mears has gone through similar experiences in 1985. It's been a frustrating year, but this weekend has been a shining star.
Well, yes, he has. He's on the pole with a new track record, and like I say, when Rick gets out there and gets a running, he's going to forget about his feet, and he's going to be a tough competitor today. You can believe that.
Well, as Gordie mentioned, Mario's here and raring to go, and Gary Lee is down in the pit area in Mario's area.
It was just 3 weeks ago that Mario Andretti suffered a broken right collarbone and a fracture of the right hip joint in the Michigan 500. He is walking with the aid of a crutch. He is racing with the aid of special padding in the cockpit. In sprint car racing, we call it a seat horn. It wraps around the chest area, so consequently the stress is taken by the chest and not the broken right collarbone. There is special padding down next to the hip and also on the right shoulder belt. The padding is this material here. It is Biosoft polymer, manufactured by a company called Spenco Medical in Waco, Texas. It's used for bicycle seats in bicycle racing and special racing gloves in bicycle racing. It has the consistency of tapioca pudding, but watch this. Just fold it over once. Obviously, I'd break my fist to do that without the padding. It should be the padding of the future. Larry?
All right, thank you, Gary. Another driver who is overcoming injuries to race here at Pocono this week is Al Unser Jr., and Jack Arute is there.
Thank you, Larry. The loving arms of crew chief Dennis Swan will be required to put his driver, Al Unser Jr., into the Domino's Pizza Hot One. This is the way that Unser's been having to get in and out of the car throughout practice and qualifying this weekend. They say in order to be tough, you've got to play tough. And for Al Unser Jr., today's run in the Domino's Pizza 500 may indeed mark him as a true superstar of the future. Let's go back upstairs to Larry Nuber.
Jack, thank you very much, and that is true dedication. Today's Domino Pizza 500 is being brought to you by Dodge, a performance revolution, an American revolution. And by the STP Corporation. On the world's racetracks, on the world's roads, depend on STP, your car care company. And by Goodyear, makers of the high-performance radial, the Eagle. And by Pennzoil Motor Oil, quality protection, ask for it. Stay with us now as we come back for the starting lineup under threatening skies here at the Domino's Pizza 500 in the Pocono Mountains.
Our card officials, Rick Nadeau.
Ladies and gentlemen, here's Mr. Tom Monahan for those famous words. Gentlemen, start your engine.
And the starting command has been given by Mr. Tom Monahan.
Ready in there, Tom.
Gotcha. Bobby Rahal getting all ready to go. Phil Kruger, one of the surprise entries here at Pocono this weekend, as this starting field will be starting 3 abreast here at one of the 500s of the IndyCar season. Danny Sullivan, who has qualified so very well in 1985. He now has a string of 7 races in which he's finished first or second. That is concentration. Rick Mears, who sits on the pole, the brand new track record, looks like he is all ready to go. This would be a very big win if Rick Mears could pull it off. The Domino's Pizza balloons, red, white, and blue, ascend to the sky as the starting field awaits the second command, the first being, gentlemen, start your engines, to roll off for this 500-mile race. Near the back of the field, there is one of the new entries of this week here on the IndyCar scene. Kruger, we saw him a little earlier. Steve Chassis, who was unable to complete his qualifying run, flanks him on his right. The front row, Mears, Sullivan, and Rahal. This area of the country, Pocono, Pennsylvania, used to be known as one of the vacation spots of America. It was also a very popular place to go on honeymoon, but this racetrack, Gordy Johncock, has changed all of that. There's a lot of racing lore now that's being built here in eastern Pennsylvania.
Well, yes, there is. There's a lot of fans that come from New York, New Jersey, out this way to watch the race. It's normally a very exciting race here. It's very tough to get set up for this track.
Gordy, we're used to seeing a powder blue or sky blue helmet behind the wheel of number 20. The helmet is still there, but the name is different.
Well, that's right, Larry. As you know, I retired on May 10th of this year, and Sammy Swindell is in the car on the ovals.
Well, as we mentioned to you earlier, Rick Mears is on the pole with a brand new track record. He qualified in at better than 203 miles an hour today. Here is the starting grid for today's Domino's Pizza 500. Pole setter Rick Mears, 203.532 is how the digits read out. He'll start on the inside of the front row. Rapid Danny Sullivan, Louisville, Kentucky, 202 miles an hour, middle of row number 2. Or row number 1, I beg your pardon. On the outside, Bobby Rahal. Now, these will all be marches. When Lolas and Eagles are in the field, we'll so designate. Michael Andretti hopes to recover from that drama this morning. He started on the inside of row number 2. And in the middle, another Texan, Johnny Rutherford from Fort Worth, the Vermont American Alex Foods March. On the outside of row number 2, Al Unser, the surprise of the 1985 season, the Hertz Special. Row number 3, the winner of the Michigan 500, Emerson Fittipaldi from Brazil. His car is sponsored by the 7-Eleven Corporation. In the middle, Kevin Kogan, also involved in that helicopter incident this morning, the Craco Wolf System Special. And on the outside, the injured Al Unser Jr., driving the Races-sponsored car, Domino's Pizza Hot One. In row number 4, father Mario Andretti, after that great early season drive, he now starts on the inside of row 4 in his Lola. In the middle, Jeff Brabham, the Australian who has moved to California in the Coors Light Silver Bullet. Oval specialist Pancho Carter, moving from California to Indiana and now driving the Valvoline Hawk. The rest of the starting grid in row 5, Roberto Guerrero, Scott Brayton, and Danny Angayas. In row number 6, Ed Pym will be on the inside with A.J. Foyt, who was faster earlier in qualifying this weekend, in practice rather, is in the middle, and Jose Ligarza on the outside. In row 7, Tom Steva, he'll have to come from the back of the pack, Huddy Holmes and Dick Simon. In row number 8, Dennis Firestone, Sammy Swindell in the middle, and Dale Coyne on the outside. That's a Lola. And in row 9, the last row here this afternoon at Pocono, Phil Kruger, Steve Chassis, and Tom Bigelow. Today, as always on ESPN broadcast, we'll be attempting to hook up with some selective drivers via the radio, and one that would certainly be appropriate is Michael Andretti. Michael was involved in a very dramatic incident trying to get to the racetrack here today, and I'm going to check in with Michael. Michael, this is ESPN, Larry Nuber. How's it feeling out there, Michael?
I heard you, Michael. I didn't guess they're not coming on. Maybe that's have a problem. Over.
Well, right now, Michael is still trying to communicate with this pit crew as they're making those last-minute conversations and decisions about running this 500-mile race, and we'll give it another shot. Michael, this is Larry Newber up in ESPN Control. Does everything now seem to be under control for you?
Hey, Larry, this is Al Jr.
Well, we had a little bit of a bobble there. This is Al Jr. Al, you're trying to come back from injuries this weekend. I know turn 2 at slower speeds was a problem, but how's it feel now?
Well, the ankles got stronger since the first day I got it.
I think they tried Michael, but they haven't got through yet. Over.
Okay, over.
Well, Al also involved in those very important pit conversations before the green flag flies here. Jeff Brabham in the Coors Light Silver Bullet, the Rick Gallos machine from down in New Mexico, talking about Al Unser Jr., that's his hometown, comes into the pits here prematurely on one of 3 pace laps that will precede this 500-miler. Jeff, who has been very close to winning a couple times this year, may have to start from the back of the pack if he can't get back out there, Gordy, in time.
Oh, yes, he will, but it seemed like the last race they done this, they came in. I don't know if they were trying to get the last-minute fuel, but it doesn't look like it. It looks like they got a problem with the car here.
Well, the front row continues to motor around and set the pace here in preparation for the Domino's Pizza 500. You know, something else that's become a tradition on ESPN broadcast are those of us who are monitoring this race and trying to make the call for you, picking drivers that we think will perform well, maybe win this race. And you know, Gordy, it's easy when you wait until about lap number 180, but here with 200 laps to go, selecting the winner of the race might become a difficult call. Before this morning, I got to tell you that I really liked the chances of Michael Andretti and Kevin Kogan. I felt that both of them showed a lot of confidence early on, but this morning has got to shake them. Looking toward a winner, my call, I keep thinking that Rahal is due. And right now, I guess early on, I would go with Bobby Rahal. Well, how about you?
Well, certainly, you know, all 3 guys in the front row have had a lot of problems this year. Rick and Sullivan and Rahal. And I got to feel that not just because they're in the front row and running the quickest, but it's got to, I believe, almost be one of their turns.
Now, theoretically, because they're closer to the action, our pit reporters should be a little better at this than we are. So let's give them a shot. Gary Lee, your pick.
The only guy to win the Triple Crown, Big Al Sr.
Well, certainly if you look at his performance up till now, Al Sr. looks like he's due. Would you agree with that, Jack Arute?
I'm afraid, Larry, that I'll have to. I think Al Sr. has run so well, especially in 500-mile contests this year, and you can't beat the knowledge upstairs. That's what's so important when you come and talk about Al Unser Sr.
Well, it's unanimous down in the pit area, at least. Al Unser to win the Domino's Pizza 500. We'll be back with the exciting start of today's 500-miler from the Pocono, Pennsylvania mountains right after this. Mentioned at the top of the show that the weather is threatening. As a matter of fact, there have been sprinkles of rain all this morning, but nothing heavy enough to stop the race. The temperature, 65 degrees. The winds from the southeast at 5 to 15 miles per hour and gusting. The chance of sunshine is only 5%. The humidity, kind of a moderate 60 degrees. And the skies right now, very overcast. Getting ready to start this 500-mile race. Gordy, when you start 3 abreast, no matter how big the racetrack is, no matter how many rows are involved, you've got to pay attention, don't you?
Well, you certainly do, especially more so at Indianapolis you do here at Pocono. You have a real wide straightaway here at Pocono, and it certainly does help. And they repaved it recently, and it's pretty good.
Rick Mears will bring the field down. It's a 3/5 of a mile long front stretch. Nick Fornaro looking over the field. They seem to be in perfect alignment. The green flag is out. The Domino's Pizza 500 is underway. The front row is 4, maybe 5 abreast going into turn 1. Looks like Danny Sullivan, for about the umpteenth time in 1985, emerges on top. Sullivan has led so many of these IndyCar races in the early stages of this season, and Sullivan streams down the long pond backstretch. There is Michael Andretti going to the inside of Danny Sullivan, and Michael Andretti looks for the early lead. Michael Andretti leading through turn 2, the tunnel turn, down the short backstretch. Sullivan chasing, and Andretti has come from row 2, the 4th starting position. It's Andretti, Sullivan coming out to the backstretch. Well, just maybe, Gordy, I outguessed myself. I said I really felt that Kogan and Michael Andretti were maybe poised on the edge of greatness, and as the first lap was an indication, Michael's feeling real great racing?
Well, he's running real great. His car must be performing real well. He got a jump on him coming down the front straightaway here, and he was second going into turn 1, and then after they come out of turn 1, he passed Sullivan going down the back straightaway.
What a great moment this would be for Michael Andretti. This is, in effect, his home racetrack. This is one of the few racetracks, no, the only racetrack on the trail around the world where Michael and Mario can sleep in their own beds at night. This is a racetrack where they go home to home-cooked meals, they watch the television, watch the late news, get up early in the morning, and as we heard, they helicopter the racetrack normally without incident. Michael Andretti continues to hold the early lead here as lap number 2 is completed. Sullivan nestles down there in second position, but Michael has put some distance, Gordy, between himself and Danny Sullivan. There you see the interval, and Andretti has opened up about a football field.
Well, yes, he has, and also Sullivan is about the same distance ahead of third place. They're all, the two in front are running real quick and real smooth. They look real good out there.
Now, in a 500-mile race, pit stops become critical because there are so many of them. Cars figure to stop 7 or maybe 8 times, depending upon the number of caution flags you have that can really adjust how many times you are required to stop. Now, third place is also contested right now. Running in third position at the end of lap number 3 was Rick Mears, but as you can see, Penske yellow is right there on his tailpipe. Bobby Rahal now has moved into third position. There's Rahal in the Budweiser 2 Sports car, and Rick Mears in the Pennzoil number 5, the Penske car, is in 4th position. Gordy, how much of this is serious racing and how much of this is just for show?
Well, they're all trying to just kind of hold their position right now. You know, it's just the very beginning of the race, and especially the pros that are up here front, including Michael. You know, they're just trying to hold their position and get their car working well where they know they can perform at the end of the race. Rahal looks like he's doing much better today than he did at Elkhart Lake. He's not scrubbing the bottom, so...
That is Texan John R. Johnny Rutherford. You know, he has struggled in the 1985 season, but right now, Johnny Rutherford has moved up into the number 5 position unofficially. He was just able to dispose of Al Unser Sr. Rutherford has had a good week. He has been among the 10 fastest drivers all weekend long. In practice on Thursday and Friday, qualifying on Saturday, and he comes into today's race. It's like a homecoming for Johnny. This is the kind of racetrack that he excelled on back in the 1970s, the late 1960s. He was very anxious to race at Pocono, almost as an atonement for this season so far, Gordy.
Well, yes, you know, this is a new team for him this year, and it takes a little bit to get with it. You start working with new people. It takes you a little time to get confident in your pit crew and get settled down to where you can really perform right.
Johnny Rutherford, a former USAC sprint car champion, a man who we saw win for the first and only time, as a matter of fact, on a road course at Mid-Ohio back in 1980. And Rutherford looks like he is ready to deal and duel with the best of them this afternoon here at Pocono. You know, the threatening weather has other ramifications other than just delaying this race. The kart officials will have the option of this in this race, if it is stopped after 100 laps, of declaring it a race. Now, Gordy, what do you think? If you were in a car trying to make decisions like that, would you be thinking, hey, if it rains and we have completed only 101 laps, they may call this thing. Do I got to get to the front earlier than usual?
Well, your pit crew will kind of keep you, you know, you're really not thinking about that out there running on the track. Your pit crew is more or less paying attention to that. I know the STP Patrick Racing team, a lot of times in the weather like this, they even had a pilot up there in the airplane talking to them down, you know, telling them about the weather. So you know what to do. You know, you could turn up your boost. If you knew it was going to rain, you could turn up your boost and get to the front. So you could be up there in case a yellow did come out.
Well, there is Bobby Rahal running in third. Johnny Rutherford is moving up, but what a performance by Michael Andretti.
I talked with the Craco Electrolux crew, and I said, why is he out in front? Did he simply get a good hole shot? They said he's been starting well all season. He's had great starts. But remember, how can you formulate a pre-race strategy when you have a helicopter crash in the morning? So right now, Michael is just feeling great.
Well, pre-race strategy or not, Michael Andretti is showing nothing but rear tires and an exhaust pipe to the rest of the field. I gotta believe that everybody is a little surprised. This is like Indianapolis of last year, Gordy, but I don't think anybody really anticipated Michael Andretti, particularly after what happened this morning, to be dominant this early in the race.
Well, I think the drivers are surely thinking about him. They know, you know, that he's capable of doing it. And like I say, he got a good jump here coming down the front straightaway on the start of the race, and was able to go into second into the turn 1 and then pass going down the back straightaway. But he seems to be pulling away, so his car must be working exceptionally well at this time.
Well, remember that Michael is a part of a 2-car team, and already lapping begins as you see Michael coming down the long front stretch. He's part of a 2-car team, and some people may have offered some criticism about that as the season wore on. But in recent weeks, this Craco 2-car team really seems to be coming on.
Michael Andretti, in all types of sports, we have momentum. And it would seem that you are beginning to pick up the momentum. You've had some great finishes recently, and you have to be thinking, when's that win going to come?
Yeah, I think that's true. We seem to have the ball rolling again, and I just hope we can keep it rolling. Things so far here at Pocono have been going quite well, and I'm pretty happy with it. So, you know, I think you can expect a win hopefully soon.
500 miles on a 2.5-mile track that translates to 200 laps, so don't get excited if you're a Michael Andretti fan. Things are going real well right now, but we have only completed 8 laps. Bobby Rahal has been able to get around Danny Sullivan, and Rahal, the man who now lives in the shadows of Columbus, Ohio, where there'll be a IMSA race, by the way, for the first time later this season, has now moved into second position. Sullivan holds on to third, and Sullivan has got to be thinking, boy, things are going right well now, but I've had so many problems in recent weeks. There is Bobby Rahal running right now in second position. Sullivan has got to be worried. Is that old bugaboo of the Gremlin's going to jump up and grab me again? What do you think, Larry?
Well, I don't think he's really thinking about that right at the moment. You know, maybe later on in the race when the cars get scattered out a little bit and he's really not right here running hard, you know, trying to stay in position. I don't think he's thinking about that right now, but it might start working on him a little bit towards the end of the race.
There you see Andretti going by. Rahal continues to run in second, and Sullivan is in third position. Jack Arute?
Larry, there's a problem down here, and it's called rain. Precipitation is beginning to fall fairly evenly here on pit road, and this could be problems for the entire Domino's Pizza 500.
Well, what that means, of course, a lot of judgment calls on behalf of CART and the officials assembled here in the Pocono Mountains. Remember, these cars are not equipped to run in the rain, and particularly on a high-speed oval. You know, the average qualifying speed was above 200 miles an hour. As a matter of fact, 9 of them qualified faster than that. So it won't take too much rain at all to cause some trouble and to at least temporarily bring a halt to this race. We'll be back after these messages, and we'll see, will the rain have a major effect on the Domino's Pizza 500? Mr. Senior flashing through your frame there in that bright yellow Penske car leading his pack right now. Senior is being shown unofficially in the 4th running position, but the story of the race so far, young Michael Andretti, who has never won an IndyCar race. There goes Danny Sullivan, I believe. Yeah, Danny Sullivan, who lost a position earlier in this race to Bobby Rahal. Sullivan running unofficially in the 3rd spot right now. But Michael Andretti is showing nothing but, well, tire smoke if he was dragging away from everybody here in the early stages of the race. There is dirt track star Sammy Swindell, who, despite crashing in practice yesterday, was able to qualify for this race. Gordy, you know, we said that for Michael Andretti to dominate this race early on as we watch Al Unser Sr., it may not have been so surprising to a lot of the competitors, but maybe the fans didn't really expect this.
Well, if they've been watching racing, especially the last 2 or 3 races, Larry, they know that he's been coming on. Last year he done real well. This year, you know, he's with the same team, but it goes that way some years. The first part of the season, they could just do nothing right. They really weren't competitive.
There is the surprise in terms of point gathering for 1985, that yellow car, Al Unser Sr., and there's the man who won this year's Indy 500, Danny Sullivan. He has 2 career 500-mile victories in just 6 races, a 333 batting average, good enough for any major league in 500-mile races. As a matter of fact, the team that he races for, Penske Racing, they've been very successful in 500-milers. Al Unser Sr., of course, is the man who is the only one to ever win all 3 races in the IndyCar Triple Crown. That was done back in the decade of the 70s, and frankly speaking, Gordy, you know, I didn't think that anybody would really win 3 IndyCar race 500-milers in a single season.
Well, it's tough, Larry. I come close to doing it. In 1982, I won the Indianapolis, I won the Michigan. I came here to Pocono and was running second, but there was no way that I could have won it. But with 6 laps to go, the car broke.
Michael Andretti has just made his way through some slower traffic, and it's given Rahal a little bit of an opportunity to catch up. Don't know right now. There's Rahal in the background there in the center of your screen, now near the top. If it was an opportunity to catch up, or if Rahal has Michael in his sights and is just keeping pace. Now, as Jack reported, Gordy, it's beginning to rain. Now, what do you think's going on in both these guys' minds? Does that mean that I got to get to the lead in case something specific happens?
Not really, I don't think, this early in the race, and they really might not even be knowing. You know, they're traveling so fast out there and no harder than it might be raining. They might not even know it at the time.
Well, there is Dad, Mario Andretti, that red car right now, which is leading the teammate of Michael Andretti, Kevin Kogan. Mario's being shown in 9th position and Kevin Kogan in 10th.
Kevin just passing him.
Going down the backstretch, 2/3 of a mile right there, going into the tunnel turn, the roughest part on this racetrack, but the Indy cars have really done well. They really seem to be able to smooth that out this week. Kevin Kogan has now moved up to 9th position. And talking with Kevin a little earlier this week, Kevin also exuded a great deal of confidence. There is Mario running in 10th, running comfortably right now, but not as fast as we have been accustomed to see him run the early part of the season. But Kogan said, you know, I think I have a chance at winning this one. There are the two leaders again moving up on the slower traffic, and Rahal has really closed the advantage that Michael Andretti once held. Let's watch this closer, moving to the inside of Jeff Brabham, who had some problems in the earlier part of the race. And there is Al Jr. in the red, white, and blue Domino's Pizza car, and Al Sr., or make that Rick Mears, who right now leads Al Unser Jr., who, remember, is racing hurt. Now, at this part of the race, Gordy, is it possible for Al Unser Jr. to check out and assess just how that leg injury, how that ankle injury is going, and maybe get an idea this is not going to be as much of a problem as I thought?
Well, I think so. You know, unless it's really bothering him, he's not even going to be thinking about it when he's out there running, especially when he's running up here for positions right now. He seems to be running real well, and I doubt very much if it's bothering him whatsoever.
They're going at it for 6th position. Al Jr. moves to the inside of Rick Mears, takes over the number 6 spot, and Rick Mears is relegated to 7th. Al Unser Jr., who started this race today in the 9th position, has improved his lot in life by 2. He wanted to go just a little faster, and now the leader's coming in. Michael Andretti, and the wheel has come off, and it's rolling down the pit lane. Lots of drivers, or lots of crew members, rather, being along the pit wall there, and that wheel is bouncing wildly, and now finally coming to a stop. What a disappointment for the man who had dominated this race, and it looked like he had a clean shot at winning his first ever Indianapolis car race. Michael Andretti losing a wheel. I guess if it had to happen, it happened at a good place. It was right near the entrance to the pits.
Well, yes, it did. Luckily, nobody got hurt. But that's really strange. You can understand that right after a pit stop, but running this long and it coming off, that's kind of strange.
Gary Lee is there.
Because they really took the crew by surprise when he came storming in here, minus the right front.
Well, Gary was near the Michael Andretti pit as he came in, and fortunately that wheel not striking any crew member that was positioned along the wall as they are there with the boards, and that wheel didn't come off, Gordy. Obviously, Michael had some type of warning. He got down in the pit area before the wheel actually departed from the car.
Yes, he certainly felt it. There's no question about that. He felt it. That's why he was coming in, and luckily it didn't come off until he just entered the pit area.
Well, that certainly has to give you second thoughts there when you go back down.
You got it slowed down. If that had happened to him going into number 1 turn, he could have very well been in serious problem.
Now, the number 1 turn is 14 degrees in banking. It's the highest banked, at least according to the speculations, or rather to the specifications that were given by the racetrack. But it is a corner that seems to be banking perhaps just a little more than what the books would say, Gordy.
Well, they say number 3 corner here is banked 6 degrees, but to me, and number 2 is banked 8. But, you know, I think that corner is a little bit flatter than that. It certainly seems like it to me.
Bobby Rahal has just moved underneath Michael Andretti. Not for the lead, but to put Michael 1 lap down. Now, the question becomes, as Michael is, as they say in the South, figuring up and checking out their race car. Is that going to happen again? I would like to get my lap back in case there is a caution flag. That's Rahal, the leader. Andretti is not in second position. There are still about 10 or 12 cars that are on the lead lap, but Michael Andretti in that blue and yellow Craco car is now a lap down. They're working on Tom Sneva.
Well, certainly, Michael's going to try and get back ahead of Rahal in case a yellow comes out, and then he can go back around and be on the same lap to get his lap back, and he has been quick enough to do that. I doubt very much if he's thinking much about his wheel coming off, but he might be thinking about it a little bit later.
Well, heavy traffic. There you see Al Unser Sr., who continues to ride right on the heels of Rahal. Sparks coming up, and that's something that we've all been accustomed to seeing from the Truman car all year, Gordy.
Well, yeah, especially at Elkhart Lake. I couldn't believe, as bad as that car was hitting, that he was even able to finish the race. But it's not as serious here today, and I think you see it when he got down low on the racetrack where it's a little bit rougher.
Well, it was something they had prepared for, but I don't think even they expected that. Al Unser Sr., the man who has surprised everybody by coming out of the bushes. He was just a substitute driver. He was the third driver on essentially a two-car team, except for 3 500-mile races, and he leads the point standings. In effect, he leads. It's a three-way tie, and it's like a brand-new start in the 1985 point season. Moving to the inside of Dennis Firestone, going down this long front stretch, chasing Rahal. There's Rahal shooting sparks again, going into turn number 1. Shooting around the inside, down where the groove is, and he really got out of that traffic with some, and squirms just a bit coming out of turn number 1. There's Al Unser Sr. still trying to work his way through the slower traffic, and Rahal really disposed of all those people in fine fashion, Gordy.
Well, yes, he did. He got by them real quick. But, you know, if they're single file out, it's not really hard to do that. But when Al come up on them there, they were kind of two abreast, and it's definitely a little more difficult to get around them when they're in that situation.
Well, here at Pocono, in that it's a 2.5-mile racetrack and you can travel at speeds up to 200 miles per hour, things will happen quickly, including the pit stops. Now, it's not like a stock car. You can't go 100 miles, so pit stops will be coming up within the next 10 laps or so. 24 laps have been completed. Michael Andretti looked like he was headed for victory, but problems with the wheel coming off has given the lead to Bobby Rahal. See that yellow car? He is inched near the top of the point standings after the results of the last 2 or 3 races. And guess what? He just inched into the lead. Going into turn number 1, the high bank corner, 14 degrees, high bank here for Pocono. Al Unser Sr., still looking for his first 1985 IndyCar win, is the new leader after just 36 laps. Bobby Rahal continues now in second position. Rahal, who led for about 15 laps of this race. He led during and before that the first set of pit stops, now finds himself in a position where he has to follow Al Unser Sr. What about Al Unser Sr., Gordy? Why hasn't he won so far, do you think, in 1985?
Well, he's just had a little tough luck. You know, they've been there knocking on the door all the time, and it goes that way sometimes. You just, you know, you can't seem to win, or just you don't get the car set really just how you want it, so you can really go out there and race like he's doing today. Now, he's really running. He's running real quick out there today, and his car looks much more stable going down the straightaway than Bobby Rahal's car does.
Something else we have not seen very much of this year. He hasn't charged all that often. A lot of his finishes have been a result of motoring around in 5th, 6th, or 7th. Attrition takes its toll, and almost said, presto, Senior finds himself in 2nd or 3rd. Yeah. He's not waiting today.
I'm a little surprised that Al is running this hard right at the first of the race. His car, like I say, you can see it there on the track. It looks like it's much smoother than Bobby's car. It's not weaving quite so bad. He's getting a better bite of the racetrack. But his car has to be running real well, or he wouldn't be up there charging like that. He would set back because he is in the point race, and he knows how valuable that is when it comes down to the end of the season.
Yeah, if he's holding back at all, the rest of the field is really in trouble. You know, he races today, obviously, as he has for all of the 1985 season with the Penske team. They've got 3 cars that are running in the top 10 and running really solidly. Al Unser Jr. continues on the speedway, continues to turn in a tremendous performance, considering that he is driving hurt. Gordy, you've had experience with that. Sometimes that's tough to overcome, isn't it?
Well, yes, it is. You know, most of the time, unless it's right quick after the accident like little Al's is, the time that it really bothered me the most was at Milwaukee. I broke my ankle in '84 at the Speedway in May, and a week later I ran Milwaukee, and I had to do everything with 1 foot. You know, the ankle was still pretty sore yet, and I couldn't use it on the brake or anything else, and I had to use 1 foot, and it was a little bit difficult. But Al is young, and he's had a couple of weeks to heal here, and I doubt if he's really even thinking about that right at the moment.
It heals quick when you're, say, under 25.
You didn't have to.
Yeah, I understand. Well, this is a story that all of us have been following very closely this week, and has also resulted in an invitation to come as a potential relief driver to an old friend.
Floyd, you're casually dressed in jeans, a sweater, a shirt. You're not dressed to go out there and race, but you're standing by to drive relief if it is needed. Now, as a race driver, you tend to get psyched up before an event. It has to be difficult standing here not knowing if you're ever going to get out there.
Well, you're right, Gary. There's no doubt about that. We've got a lot more stops to do with the Domino Pizza car.
probably do 6 or 7 stops for the day, and it's going to be a lot later in this event before we find out for sure whether Little Al can make it. I'm confident that he can, but I'm not going to get dressed until later on and until we actually know. Unfortunately, we're complicating that at the moment a little bit with some radio trouble.
Well, that was my next question. An old hand signal is a pad on top of the helmet if you need relief. It's difficult to give that signal at 200 miles an hour out here.
Yeah, but Little Al is only Little Al in name only. You know, he's an old pro. He knows what he's got to do. I'm only here to help him, and I hope that I'll be of some assistance to him so that he can win the championship. We want to get as many points today as we can.
Well, Tom Gloy is ready if needed. Larry?
Al Unser Jr. is being shown in 3rd position. Mario Andretti, by the way, just went 1 lap down, so somewhat of a surprise. Andretti in 11th position, but 2.5 miles behind. Al Unser Jr., there really was a question as early as Tuesday of this week as to whether or not he could race. The decision really didn't come down until Wednesday that, yes, he was going to attempt to drive. Is he healthy? Well, earlier this week in practice, when he winked at his wife, Shelley, the answer was yes.
2 weeks ago at Road America, Al Unser Jr. looked to be on his way to his 3rd consecutive road course win in the Provimiville 200 when showers began falling. Unser radioed his crew for rain tires, but before he could get to the pits, this happened.
After watching the video films, I realized that I was the first one through that the track was wet enough to actually take the car and make it go off the racetrack.
The crash fractured Al's ankle, and he said, though, he'd be ready to race this weekend. But what about Al's wife, Shelley? Did she try to keep him from returning to the sport so soon?
Are you kidding? There's no way. If he wants to race, he's going to race.
The crash has left him temporarily crutch-bound and unable to enter and exit the car without total assistance from his crew chief, Dennis Swan. Nevertheless, he's ready and quickly dismisses the notion that a broken ankle should keep him on the sidelines.
I just love to drive race cars, and if I'm able to drive race cars, then I'm going to go drive them, you know, hurt or not hurt, I'm going to go and do the best job I can do, you know, I just love racing, and I was laying in the hospital bed when the Firecracker 400 was on TV, and I just called up the guys that were working, building a new car at the shop, and I just wanted to tell them that I love racing. That pumped me up. You know, I'm ready to go.
For you, maybe a little deja vu there for you, Gordy Johncock. Was that Gordy Johncock?
Well, it could very well be.
Yeah, Al Unser Sr. is really a fascinating personality when it comes to the sport of automobile racing. Al Unser Jr., almost by surprise, moves up into 2nd position. Al Unser Jr. running very hot after this last session of pit stops, moves past his father to the inside, and Al Unser Sr. now runs 3rd. 44 laps are complete. Bobby Rahal leads this race with Al Unser Jr. now running in 2nd. Running in 3rd, Al Unser Sr. Rick Mears is 4th. Johnny Rutherford holding 4th in 5th. Holding 4th fast, I should say. Michael Andretti is in 6th position. Andretti is shown as 21 seconds behind the leader. Remember, he is out of sync in terms of pit stops, so he, in effect, may be 1 pit stop behind. Danny Sullivan follows, then Pancho Carter, Emerson Fittipaldi, and Kevin Cogan in 10th position. Jack Arute, as usual, doing an intrepid job down in the pit area.
Well, Emerson Fittipaldi's teammate Sammy Swindell in the SDP oil treatment special is history. Sammy, you're out of the race. What happened?
Well, we had a slight problem with the motor. It was missing just a bit, so I just shut it off.
Your impressions, first Michigan and now Pocono, 500-mile contest. Do you like them compared to the sprint cars you're normally used to?
Well, I haven't got to run that long really yet, and we had a few problems here, but we're looking forward to the next one.
Another car and team that's having problems is with Gary Lee right now. Let's go to him.
Indeed, Mario Andretti is not physically 100%. The car is not mechanically 100%. It is pushing severely, which makes it very difficult to hang on to and turn it through the corners. They did make a chassis adjustment during the last pit stop. Now Mario has to manhandle the car until the next stop. Gordy, if I could address this question to you, racing can be very much mental. For Michael Andretti, it's been a very traumatic day. He had that crash in the helicopter earlier. Then while leading the race, the right front wheel comes off. What kind of mind games does that play?
Well, I don't think it's really bothering that much. You know, you see he got right back out there and running just as hard as he was before, and he's going to keep on running that way. It's going to take a lot more than that to distract Michael's mind from his racing out there today.
Michael goes by on the inside of turn number 1, that blue and yellow machine. No, that is Kevin Cogan. That is his teammate. The cars are painted alike, but the colors are inverted. Kevin Cogan, who is running in the top 10. The leader continues to be Bobby Rahal, but the man really charging on is Al Unser Sr. Al Unser Jr. is only 1.5 seconds behind. Bobby Rahal leads this race with 47 laps completed here at Pocono. But Al Unser Jr. apparently made the right decision during the last pit stop. Can he catch Rahal? We'll find out after these words. Now we are in the middle of about 10 consecutive weeks where there will be at least one and sometimes as many as 3 races, current races in a given week. The next IndyCar race from the Lexington, Ohio road course, the Mid-Ohio 200 from the Mid-Ohio road course near Mansfield, Ohio. Bobby Rahal, of course, calling that his home racetrack. It's owned by the guy who owns his race car, Jim Truman. Roberto Guerrero moves into the pit area. The pit stops first session came between laps 26 and 31, so we would anticipate normal stops between laps 55 and 60. Roberto coming in maybe just a little early, Gordy.
Well, yes, he is. I didn't really notice him on the first one, but he might have stopped early. A lot of them will do that on the first pit stop to make sure that they're getting the correct fuel mileage. They might have not have got it down pat after the half-hour practice after qualifying. So they might just come in early. It's a 2.5-mile track here, and if you run out going down the front straightaway, you're not going to make it back.
Well, the 22 car this week is Dick Simon. The old pro has said, hey, Raul, who is his young driver, Raul Boisel, who has been running about 90% of the races for him this year, said, I want to run this one. I like these ovals. I like these 500-mile races, and Dick Simon is the pilot this year. Also, confirmation on Guerrero. He did stop early, and by the way, Roberto lost a lot of valuable practice time late Friday afternoon when everybody was out doing real heavy-duty practicing. They were making an engine change, and so they may not have had an ample opportunity to do all the work they wanted to on Saturday.
Well, that certainly makes a difference here at this track, Larry, because this is probably the toughest track they have to set up. The degree of the banking here is different on all 3 corners. It goes from 14 to 8 to 6. And you really got to get set up for the third turn here, coming out of the third turn, where you can run through there flat throttle, because you got this long straightaway here, and you're running at 180, 190, 200 miles an hour. If you have to get out of the throttle, it really drags you down, and you lose a lot of time going down this front straightaway into the number 1 corner.
Gordon, down here in the pits, this is Jack Arute. One of the problems that may be developing, not a major one, but it's a problem, is fuel consumption on Bobby Rahal's car. Once again, the Rahal team is getting set to make an early pit stop. You recall we were talking to Jim Truman a while ago, and he had to break away because the fuel light went on that said that Rahal's car had run out of fuel. Now it looks as if they may be bringing him in just maybe 2 to 3 laps earlier than most of the competition. So this could be an ongoing problem, especially when you're going to make 7, 8, 9 stops in a 500-mile contest.
Well, it could very well be. Bobby's been running real quick all day. As you know, he's been leading the race, and if this continues, I'm sure you're going to see him turn the boost down a little bit and just fall back in the pack a little, maybe like Rick Mears is, and conserve on fuel, because they all know that they have to go 500 miles.
Well, it becomes a real head game now for Jim Truman, Bobby Rahal, Steve Horn, and crew as they come in earlier than all the leaders. This is lap number 54. They come in after having run the last 20 laps or so in first or second position. Rahal pitted on lap 26. This time he goes 27 laps, so they were able to get at least 2.5 more miles. They milked it out 1 more lap this time, Gordy.
Well, yes, they're just playing it safe, and that's the way you've got to do, because like I say, if you run out going down the front straightaway here, you're not going to be able to coast back into the pit, because this is a 2.5-mile racetrack. So a smart crew will not take a chance.
Danny Ongais doing what he likes to do best and run these high-speed ovals. A lot of smoke coming from the right rear. Maybe the brake's heating up, Gordy.
Well, that could be, or a little bit of grease on the brake disc there, more likely is what's doing it.
There's Kevin Cogan. Cogan, remember, has been running 8th, 9th, 10th. Al Unser Sr., lap number 55. He's already completed his stop, the first of 3 Penske cars that we have seen under this green flag pit stop session. Al Unser Sr. pulling away The pit area here at Pocono is very wide and expansive. It gives you a lot of opportunity for safety when you're entering and leaving.
Oh, definitely. That makes it very good, Larry, because especially on the road courses, there's so many of the pit lanes that are so narrow. You really got to watch what you're doing, because if you don't, you can get tangled up with the car and get into your man out on the pit board, or less in the rest of them that are servicing cars. So this does really make it well.
Emerson Fittipaldi had just been lapped about 3 laps ago. He is 1 lap and about 3 seconds behind the leader, Fittipaldi, in 7th position. Again, another routine pit stop. No panic. Some communication there between Fittipaldi and Gary Ravazzini, the crew chief, as they assess the situation. The yellow car right behind Emo is Rick Mears. Mears, who, again, brand new track record today. He hasn't shown that 203-mile-an-hour speed, though, once the green flag dropped.
Well, I think Rick is driving, a smart race. He's probably just holding back there. He's staying on the same lap with no problem and not that far behind. And you've got 500 miles to go here, Larry. So there's really not that much, to really be getting up there and being charging at this point. He's saving it for the end of the race, I'm sure.
Once again, remember, 500 miles on a 2.5-mile racetrack, 200 laps. We've only gone 57, so there's a long ways to go. The rain that was reported earlier has stopped, so at least for the time being, the rain is not a threat. But it has to be something that, into the mind of every crew chief, that thought's going to creep again as we get to lap 100, because there's always that chance, Gordy.
Yeah, there certainly is, and like I say, they're not thinking about it so much right now, like you said, but they're going to really be thinking about it when they get the halfway point, especially if it looks like if it's going to cloud up and rain, in which there was a 70% chance of rain. Here's little Al coming in real quick.
Al Unser Jr. jerks out of the lead down in the pit area. Gary Lee is right there.
And Al Unser Jr. is here. He slides to a stop, and right now there is some communications between Al Unser Jr. and relief driver Tom Gloy. Tom has a chalkboard that reads, "We can hear you." So now Tom and the crew will have communication with Al Jr. They're changing 3 tires, topping off the fuel, cleaning off the visor, and Al Jr. is underway.
As Al Unser Jr. exits the pit area, we can tell you that most of the top cars stretched it a little more on the first stop than on the second stop, rather than on the first stop, Gordy. They went like 2 to 4 laps more. They're experimenting, aren't they?
Yeah, that's because they know, Larry, after the first stop, they calculate and see how much fuel mileage they're getting, how well, and they know that they can run another lap or 2 or 3 or 4 more laps on the next pit stop.
Johnny Rutherford right now, before he stops, is running in 2nd position. Rutherford is about 16 seconds behind Al Unser Jr. Despite that pit stop, data speed still says that the young man who's driving hurt is still leading this race. Johnny Rutherford now is the current leader. As data speed picks up, Rutherford stays out. Al Unser Jr. on the racetrack now trying to pick up some ground that is lost when you pit underneath the green flag. But Rutherford in the Vermont American car is doing something that in the 1960s and 70s we became very accustomed seeing, but we haven't seen very much of anymore, and that is lead an IndyCar race. Texan John R., the man with the Lone Star on the helmet. He picked up a trademark helmet just like you did, Gordy. By the way, where did that powder blue helmet come from? The North American sponsorship?
Well, yeah, that's where it originally started out as, and I just kind of stuck with it throughout the years. People get to know your helmet just like they do JR's helmet,
Here's JR coming in. Routine. Rutherford looks over the pit wall looking for Johnny Capos. Apparently their radio working. Rutherford nodding his head as he confers with Johnny Capo. They're checking the fuel mileage, probably checking the bars, the brake bias, all those controls that the driver can activate from inside the cockpit. A great day for Johnny Rutherford. This is the kind of racetrack that he really likes to excel on. He's had some horrendous crashes on high-speed ovals, but there's been a lot of stability in that team in terms of on the racetrack in 1985, but they haven't had very much success in terms of running in the top 3.
Well, like I said, Larry, he's with a new team, and probably one of John's worst crashes has been right here at Pocono in Turn 1. He went into Turn 1 a couple, 3 years ago and had a tire go down on him, and he hit the wall, and the car just literally came apart.
Well, Danny Sullivan is out on the racetrack, and we're checking to see if Sullivan has made his second pit stop yet. No, he hasn't. He came in on lap 30. That means if you're adding up and multiplying by 2, it's time for Danny Sullivan to pit again. It's lap number 60. We also have a report that Al Unser Sr. who, when everybody pits, will probably get out of this in second position. Maybe black flag, Gordy, for a pit road violation, a stop-and-go violation down at the end of the pit row. And now a further report that maybe Al Unser Jr. will get it too. What do you think?
Well, I don't know. I didn't see any of it going on, but evidently maybe they ran over an air hose or something. I don't know.
Boy, this will have a tendency to really equalize the competition here. Ray Hall is 11 seconds behind both of the at least laps. Here comes Al Unser Jr. rocket shipping off of turn number 3 down the front stretch. The black flag is coming out and being waved. The black flag has been given to Al Unser Jr. He will be required to come in shortly now. Now, the last time we saw this on an ESPN broadcast, he was very reluctant to come in.
Well, yes, and it's probably pretty tough on him, especially no radio communications, and he doesn't realize what's going on if there's something wrong with his car, unless he knows he ran over a hose or something in the pits. He might run a lap or two and try and get communication through his pit board of just what's wrong.
Well, let's see how he plays it. Here he comes down the back stretch around turn number 3. Remember, this is a long arcing corner, 800 feet in radius, and it's banked only 6 degrees. It does not have a negative camber, but because it is so long, and Al Unser Jr. is coming in this time, it almost seems like it has a negative camber. Here comes Al Unser Jr., one of the dominant drivers in this race. This is the car and the team that won this race a year ago. He pulls into his pit stall area. Steve Horn telling him stop, wave, away he goes, an extra pit stop, but how costly will it be? Well, now we anticipate his father coming in.
It's going to be... He's probably a little upset about it. You can't blame him for that because now it pulled him out of the lead. But he won't be that far behind because he just had to stop and go real quick.
Well, Jack Arute is down in the pit area. Jack, what's your assessment of this situation?
Larry, when you say like father, like son, you can do it again here for Al Unser Jr. and Al Unser Sr. Al Sr. will be pulled into the pits momentarily for a stop-and-go penalty. The reason is because when he exited the pits during his pit stop, he put 2 wheels outside of the yellow line, back into the racing groove, and that's a violation of kart rules. So he's in turn 3, working his way into the pits for the stop-and-go penalty. We're going to take a look. The kart official is flagging him down. They try to keep the engine running. They give him the go sign. He's got to engage it back into gear, and this is very costly for Al Sr. A good run.
That was almost a non-stop, but I think he pulled it out there at the last second, Gordy.
Yes, he made a stop good enough, but like I say, it's not going to hurt him that bad because it's just a stop and go, so it's just a few seconds, but it's getting slowed down and getting back up to speed is what's going to hurt.
Well, Danny Sullivan continues as the leader now after all of this chicanery that's going on because of pit road violations. And you know, one of the features that we've gotten a lot of positive response from viewers on here at ESPN and our auto racing broadcast are our track backs. They are an opportunity as Sullivan points his nose down toward pit road. Danny Sullivan on lap number 64 decides it's time to finally come in and make a pit stop, and Jack Arute is there.
Danny Sullivan and the Penske crew getting excellent fuel consumption this afternoon, and that could play in his favor near the end of this 500-mile contest. They look over the tires as well. They're filling it up with 40 gallons of fuel. When you look deep in the eyes of Danny Sullivan from Kentucky, you see that he seems to have everything under control. He engages it back in gear and stalls the car. He gets it fired again, but it was a costly stop over 15 seconds.
Well, that's what you'd call dodging a bullet, Gordon.
Well, yes, it is. You know, I've had that happen before myself. And a lot of times, you know, I suppose all the fans think as well as the driver he messed up. But that's not really so. A lot of times your carburation is not set right, and the car is not idling fast enough, and it will stall exceptionally easily. Mario's in the pits.
We've had a lot of fun with those track backs that I was referring to a little earlier, and this will be one that hopefully you'll enjoy. Track backs are brought to you by the Levi Garrett Chewing Tobacco. Time after time, the quality comes through.
Most components on an Indianapolis car come from across the water in Great Britain. But there's a little bit of irony to the fact that the component that deals with water, in most cases, is made right here in the States, in Indianapolis, Indiana. Jerry Weeks and his radiator company make most of the radiators for these competitors. Now, the reason that they go with Weeks' radiator rather than the ones that come standard on these cars is the fact that they have a tendency to cool better. The cores are much bigger, and that's very important when you're running 500 miles, to keep cool, especially with your engine.
This cool track fact has been brought to you by the Levi Garrett Chewing Tobacco Company. Time after time, the quality comes through. The lead in this race is being held right now by Bobby Rahal. Can he hold on? Al Unser Jr. is in second, and Johnny Rutherford is in third. Rahal, leader of this race, into the pit area. Jack Arute is there.
Seems to be a normal stop, as normal as one can be in 500 miles. They're changing the right side rubber and filling the car filled with fuel. Bobby Rahal has lifted his visor and he's surveying the situation, checking everybody over. They now get ready to drop the air jacks. A little problem on the left rear, actually, on the hub. It's gotten stuck, but now they drop it. He engages the gear and he's away in 23.4 seconds.
Gordy, kind of a long pit stop. What about that water that we saw going right there to where they normally fill the fuel?
Well, they put that water on there to keep any flash fires from coming, Larry, on it. But it is a shame that they had problems with getting the left rear on, and maybe they kind of in their mind now, is it on really good?
Not only that, but it's getting late. It's 84 laps down. The rain continues to sprinkle sporadically. Not enough to interrupt this race yet, but that long pit stop could really prove to be devastating to Rahal's hopes.
Well, that very well could, because like you say, there's 84 laps now, and they're getting close to the halfway point, and he might not be able to pick that back up before the 100th lap.
After all this, look who's back in the lead. After that extra pit stop, he's been in one more time than everybody else. Undoubtedly, that cost him 20-25 seconds by the time you slow down, stop, re-accelerate coming out of the pits. But despite that deficit, Al Unser Jr., the man with the broken bone in the ankle and the foot, leads this race by 7 seconds over Rick Mears. Now, there's an interesting story. Mears, about 3 years ago, when he was winning so many races, Gordy, I had the feeling that he won so many races with his head. There were times when it didn't seem like he was really a threat to win. He would stay out there, stay consistent, stay in the top 5. Here comes his teammate, Al Unser Sr., and boy, Al really smoothing it in. And Rick Mears would somehow pull it off at the end of a race.
Well, you know, Larry, some years it goes that way. It seems like you can do nothing wrong. The year that Johnny Rutherford was winning many races with Jim Hall, you know, they could get down a lap and come back and win a race. And if you get a year like that, just something makes up for it. You can have a problem, but somewhere along the line, throughout the race, you make up for it, and you come back to win a race.
One of the adjustments that you could make during the running of a race, you just saw it take place. Allen wrench inserted into the nose of the race car, and you make adjustments on the front wing. And it really doesn't take much to make a big difference.
Well, that's right. And this is where Al Unser, throughout his career, has always been really great. A lot of times at the first part of the race, Al has been a little bit slow, but as the race progresses and goes on, you see him get faster and faster. And when the end comes, he's knocking on the door.
Rick Mears, a two-time winner of the Indianapolis 500, runs strongly here today at Pocono. Rick Mears, who has been in the top 3 the entire race long, also takes a little more wing. Gordy, are the atmospheric conditions or all these cars being out there, oil being dropped down, does that mean we're probably tightening these cars up a little bit?
Well, that's probably what they're doing. The track probably is getting just a little bit slick. You drop a little bit of oil on it. It's not from the heat today because it's cool, and like you said, we've had a few little sprinkles. So the track is really not hot itself, I don't imagine, but the oil on the racetrack and the rubber being laid down is making it probably a little bit slick.
Update. Al Unser Sr., 31 laps on that last load of fuel. Rick Mears, 30 laps. So those guys have stretched what was a 23, 24 lap full load in the early part of this race. Now at least 2 of our leaders have gone up to 30 laps. Al Unser Jr. is somebody that we anticipate coming in the very near future. It's just about time. Remember, he had that extra pit stop, but they did not take on fuel. So he gets no additional miles because of that extra stop. So it should be time. And yep, here he comes, Gordon.
Boy, he's really blazing into it. That's what makes it really count. You know, people don't really realize that you have to really get in quick and out quick. It's not just the 13 or 14 seconds that the crew takes. It's getting in and getting out. Really, it fits.
Gary Lee is down in the Al Unser Jr. pit.
And here he is. They're topping off the fuel as he enters the pit area. He looks for that bright green hat on Dennis Swan, the crew chief's head. They are showing him the pit board indicating, we can't hear you. Talk to us. So despite racing hard, but racing fast, they're losing again the communication.
Well, maybe they can't hear him, but he's been doing right fine. Despite that extra pit stop, this man may get out of this next round here still in the lead because he had built back up to the lead just before everybody stopped. That was a pretty routine pit stop, and maybe there's something there of not being able to hear each other.
Well, you know, they can signal with the pit board, Larry, and, you know, they've done that in the past. Al Jr. has all his years coming up. So, you know, it definitely hurts you if you lose radio communications, but they still have communications through the pit board.
is only his 4th season as an IndyCar driver. Johnny Rutherford, who has not pitted yet, stays out on the racetrack, builds up some leading laps. Rutherford becomes the 7th driver to have led this race, a 500-miler here at Pocono. Johnny Rutherford. Now, Rutherford was in on lap number 59. That was 30 laps ago, and incidentally, Al Unser Jr. also went 30 laps. So these guys have found a way to get 75 miles, which is just about the formula out of these 40-gallon fuel cells that power these 750 horsepower Indianapolis cars. Johnny Rutherford anticipating a pit stop on the radio to Johnny Caples, the crew chief. He's down below the yellow line, and here comes Rutherford. Jack Arute, who has been covering the entire pit area all day, has moved and made his way down to the Johnny Caples and the Johnny Rutherford pit.
And the Vermont American team gives Johnny the slowdown signal. They're going to the rear tires once again. Left rear and right rear both being exchanged, a full load of fuel being added. Looks like there may be a minor adjustment in the front of the car. No, they're just checking underneath it to clear the radiators on the left side. Now they're giving him the signal. They pull the air hose away, and he's off in 18.5 seconds. A swift stop for Johnny Rutherford.
And Rutherford smokes out of the pit area to return to the fray. There's a good shot there of the side pods, Gordy. There's a big difference between the short track or the road course side pods and the super speedway side pods.
Well, yes, there is. It's underneath the car, really, where you can't see it, that you get the effects, the ground effects from the car. It's underneath it. You really can't see it from the side of the car.
When you were running super modifieds back 25, 30 years ago, did you ever think that we would have to be informed on that technology, aerodynamics, to make Indianapolis cars go fast?
No, you never thought about it. And, you know, who knows what's going to happen here in the next 10 years, what it's going to look like, or where the aerodynamics is going to come from.
Gordy, as we watch Rutherford, we see the wings. There's Emerson Fittipaldi on the racetrack. You know, you were one of the early pioneers with wings, and I think that probably helped you out a little bit, didn't it?
Well, I think it did. You know, you learn a few things by it, and I know, you know, when we first started, it really up the speeds in the cars. You know, you certainly had a lot of new track records when the wings came along.
Emerson Fittipaldi has moved to near the top of the point standings. We told you at the top of the show that there are 3 people in a virtual tie in the points. Emo runs in 10th place in this race. He has lost a lap to the leaders, Al Unser Jr. and Bobby Rahal, but he still runs competitively in that number 40 711 sponsored race car. Emerson Fittipaldi, a 2-time world champion who has moved to IndyCar racing. He made a few gestures at it, token appearances in 1984, but in 1985 he's gotten real serious about it, Gordy.
Larry, down here in the pits, we're with the Patrick team, and there has been a problem, a slight one on Emerson Fittipaldi's car. For the 3rd race in a row, he's lost the clutch. You remember he won the Michigan 500 clutchless. Well, if he wants to win the Pocono 500, he's going to have to do the same.
Well, the clutch, of course, on a road course can be very critical, but on an oval, the only place that should hurt you is getting into and getting out of the pits. But the drivers tell me, or is this a trade secret, that you can shift these cars without using the clutch?
Well, you can, but to get it into gear, that's where the problem comes, Larry, is to get it. If you don't have any clutch to get it in gear, you probably have to jack the car up, and he revs it up and then drop it and have it on the throttle to get out. But you definitely got to have the clutch to get it in. But once he gets it in and gets it going, then he doesn't have to have the clutch ready.
Well, another one of the services that we have developed the habit of informing you, the racing fan here during our race, is a report of what is the latest in the world of news in the world of automobile racing. And here's the STP Inside Track Report.
This is the STP Inside Track Report, brought to you by STP. On the world's roads, on the world's racetracks, depend on STP, your car care company. Well, as usual, just past the midpoint of this season, a lot of conversation about races that have been added, races that have been deleted, and some of the stands that CART, the IndyCar race sanctioning body, has taken. It's certainly appropriate to talk to the CART chairman, John Frasco. Here's Gary Lee.
Well, where's this story coming from that the Meadowlands may be off the schedule for next year?
Well, the contract that I originally signed with the Meadowlands was for 2 years, that being 1984 and 1985, with a 3-year option that they will exercise. I have been assured, and I've been in very deep discussions, in fact, as late as yesterday in New York with Meadowlands officials, and I think that you're going to see a favorable result in that in a couple weeks.
John, you alluded to a second venue into the Canadian area at Toronto. Exactly where will the race be contested?
Well, that's really going to be an exciting situation. We're racing through Exhibition Place in Toronto, right on the lakeshore, of course, and part of the race circuit, as a matter of fact, goes on Lakeshore Boulevard. And I'm very excited about that. I think that's one of the better things that the kart organization has done. And now we're trying to locate it in a proper date, and we're looking sometime in July. So hopefully in a week or two, we'll be able to be very definite on the date.
Mario returns this week amidst a lot of speculation about the team sponsor Beatrice. Earlier this month, James Dutt, then the chairman of the board of Beatrice, resigned. Some said that he was forced out. Well, anyway, a lot of journalists are suggesting that this might jeopardize the company's future involvement in the sport of racing, that involvement being Dutt's personal project. Well, these facts are known. On Thursday, the Formula One car with Alan Jones behind the wheel got onto the racetrack for the first time. He was very pleased. On Tuesday of this coming week, there will be a formal press conference in Europe where the foreign press will see for the first time formally the Formula One car. A similar occasion on Wednesday down in Miami, where Beatrice will outline plans for sponsorship of an IndyCar race there later in October of this year. Now, last year, 2 contracts were signed, a 5-year arrangement for the Formula One plans and 3 years for the IndyCars. Some journalists are saying that all contracts signed within the last 200 days are subject to review. All those racing agreements are outside of that window. Other drivers in the news, Rupert Keegan, a Britisher, has signed a contract with the Machinists Union car. He'll run 3 road courses later this year. And Pancho Carter continues to be a candidate for a stock car in the Southern 500. He'll practice on Monday, maybe on Tuesday, and if he does, he'll join A.J. Foyt, who will be doing something he has not had an opportunity to do very much this year, practice. Remember that A.J. is a rookie down at Darlington. And at the Knoxville Sprint Nationals out in Iowa, the top point collectors in the preliminaries, no surprise, Doug Wolfgang and Sammy Swindell. This has been the STP Inside Track Report.
Racing engines run hot.
Back at Pocono, where Al Unser Jr. is the leader, and now it's time for the Coney mid-race recap. Rick Mears started on the pole with a brand new track record, currently runs in 3rd position. Starting in the middle of the front row at the beginning of this race, Danny Sullivan. He has slipped, however, to 7th. And on the outside in 3rd starting spot, Bobby Rahal. Rahal has run strong all day long and currently resides in 2nd. The race summary after 100 laps here at Pocono, no caution flag so far. 1 hour and 20 minutes the time, an average speed of 185 miles per hour. There have been 7 leaders, 16 lead changes. As we mentioned, no caution flags. It's been all clean and green up to this point. Out of race, Dale Coyne, Jose Lee Garza, Sammy Swindell, Denny Ongaias, A.J. Foyt, and Phil Kruger. Perhaps the most exciting and frightening moment of the race came when Michael Andretti darted down low to pit. As he entered pit road, the right front wheel came off and scurried down along the concrete wall on the inside of the front stretch. Michael was involved also in a helicopter crash in getting to the racetrack today, along with Kevin Kogan, but there have been no serious injuries in that helicopter crash or here in the race. The top 10, Al Unser Jr., Bobby Rahal, Rick Mears, Johnny Rutherford, and Al Unser Sr. 6th through 10th, Michael Andretti, Danny Sullivan, Pancho Carter, Emerson Fittipaldi, and Kevin Kogan. The Coney Mid-Race Recap brought to you by Coney, makers of shock absorbers. Coney, proven superior. Now we're into the period of the race that if this race is stopped, it could be declared official. 113 laps complete. And Bobby Rahal, who has run in the top 3 all day long, looking for his best finish, maybe his first win of 1985, is in, and as we talk, out of the pits just that quickly, Gordon.
Yes, he had a very good pit stop. And one thing that I'm sure all the chief mechanics are very strongly thinking about right now, no yellows. There have been no yellows. Normally you figure on a few laps of yellow throughout a race for your fuel mileage. If this continues with no yellow, you could see a lot of cars running out of fuel at the end of the race.
More fireworks from Rahal as he exits the pit road with a full load of fuel. Makes the car, of course, heavier and makes it more susceptible to bottoming out. Yeah, a lot of guys might run out of fuel, Gordon, but in a way, without any yellows, as we look at Rick Mears, one of the Penske cars in the race, it kind of equalizes everything out. Shouldn't it make it easier to figure exactly how far you can go?
Well, it'll make it easier. But, you know, maybe in the first part of the race, they've used too much in the very first part of the race, figuring on yellows. But now, without a yellow, that's what might be what Sullivan is running so slow. They might have really turned the boost down in Sullivan's car because he was running so quick at first, and now he's falling back to 7th or 8th spot. So Roger Penske might be thinking very strong about, hey, if there's no yellows, we might not have enough fuel if we don't slow down now.
Well, Rick Mears exits pit road as Al Unser Jr. goes by. Yes, if he can get around Rick Mears, against whom he was racing, and there he goes, is now a lap behind. Al Unser Jr. is picking him up, laying him down, and decimating this field. Cordy, you and I were talking during one of the commercial breaks. What if he hadn't been forced into that extra pit stop because of the infraction?
Well, he could be pretty close to a lap ahead of everybody right now. He's just running exceptionally good today. They've got the car set and fine-tuned just right, so he's running very comfortably.
He's won 2 races this year, and they were races when leaders dropped out, and he himself admitted that, oh, we're just out there trying to do our best, and now victories are beginning to fall into our lap. But not so today. He's by far and away the fastest car on the racetrack.
Yes, he's dominated this race so far today. He's running very quick, and the car looks very good out there.
Al now moving up on Steve Chassie, one of the stalwarts of the stock blockers. This is the Dick Hammond Genesee beer wagon. There comes Al Unser Sr. in the Hertz number 11. He comes to a stop. Penske crew bolts over the wall to give him service. He's in 3rd place. One of the routine pit stops. This is pit stop number 4 out of 7 that will be predicted for this 500-mile race if we continue to go all under green. How many times has Al Unser Sr. sat in the cockpit with the car up on jacks and waiting for this kind of work to be done?
Well, it's been a great lot of you can believe that. He just sits there and waits patiently. He's done it many, many times. Guerrero's in the grass.
Roberto Guerrero with smoke emanating from the engine compartment. No contact with the wall, apparently no spin, but Roberto coming to a stop as our leader, Al Unser Jr., comes into the pits. Al Unser Jr. pitting on lap 117. Last time in was on lap number 88, so this time he goes 29 laps. Looks to be routine. Again, as we've showed you a number of times today, Chief Mechanic Steve Horn in that green hat doing some wing adjustments on the nose, telling, let's get going. Hey, we're leading this race. It's time to go back out into the battle. Al Unser Jr. Roberto Guerrero now out of his race car, conversing with the safety crew down there in turn number 1, I believe it happened. Just at the base of that high bank corner, Al Unser Jr. motors on by. Guerrero well out of the way of any kind of problems, and I think some precautionary quick dry going on to the engine to protect that car, because without a doubt, they're very expensive, aren't they, Gordon?
Yes, they are. And looks like it could be a little fire underneath the hood, and when that gets burning under there, it's pretty difficult to get that hood off and get it out. And a lot of times you really can't get to it until you do get the hood off.
Well, there's carbon fiber in there and a lot of fiberglass, and it can erupt, and the entire bodywork actually can go up if you're not careful. Al Unser Jr., we are told, during that last pit stop, made an adjustment to the right front wing, and again, sounds to me like the track just continues to get a little more slippery as more laps are run, and they're trying to just button these cars down and hunker them down when they go into the corners.
Yes, that's very true, Larry, and if it was a hot, sunshiny day, it would be worse than what it is right at the moment. I think all the cars are probably working pretty well on account of that. You know, we've had no spins today, no yellows, and I think it has a lot to do with the weather. The track is being cool and get a very good fight.
Everybody's getting a good stick. Johnny Rutherford, boy, he's had a good one all day. Right now, Rutherford is the leader, but he has yet to come in for his pit stop. Al Unser Sr., Al Unser Jr. have made stop number 4, and Rutherford just has it. Mario Andretti. What do you think it is? Do you think it's Mario? Do you think it's the race car? Or is it just one of those things? Do you think it's not related at all to injury?
Larry, what I think is probably happening, you know, Mario wasn't feeling very good because of his injuries, and they were shortened, I believe it was Friday on account of rain. They didn't get that much practice in, and they didn't get the car probably set just right. And the Lolas, it seems like on the big racetracks, the 2.5-mile tracks, they don't do it quite as well as they do on the miles and on the road courses. And it takes a lot more fine-tuning, it seems like, for Mario on the big tracks than it does on the smaller tracks.
Well, here comes Johnny Rutherford. He comes in this time. We have completed 119 laps, and Jack Arute is there.
Johnny Rutherford comes into the pits once again, and it's been actually an unrelentless pursuit for the lead. Johnny Rutherford at home on a 500-mile contest. You know, he won at Indianapolis, and now they're changing the left front tire. They're making an exchange there, and it looks like they're just going to fill it up with some fuel, and he'll be back on his way. A fine run for Rutherford. You know, he didn't qualify at Road America, but he's making up for it here today. 18.9 seconds, that stop.
They got to be very pleased, Gordon, with what's happened today for Rutherford. It's been a struggle in 1985, and I think he kind of anticipated that he had a real opportunity to do well here, and he's really made the most of it.
Well, yes, he has. He's doing a very good job. He had really smooth pit stops here. Really quick, really getting in and out of the pits real fast. Of course, that's something that Johnny's used to, is getting in and out of the pits real quick. And like I said earlier, it takes the team a little while to get together and get to know one another with the driver.
Well, Rutherford has won the Indianapolis 500 3 times. He also has won this race. A lot of the veterans have won this race. It's been a race that has developed a number of different winners. Only A.J. Foyt and Al Unser Sr. have been able to rack up multiple wins. But non-winners of this race have included Mario Andretti, Bobby Rahal, although he's only been around about 4 years, and Emerson Fittipaldi just in the sophomore season. And one other guy, some fellow by the name of Gordon Johncock.
Yes, I never seem to have that much luck here. You know, we've run real well here at times, and one year we were leading it and blew a tire right here in front of the flagger and have ran out of fuel a 3 times here also leading.
Al Unser Jr., who crashed here in 1984, he's had 2 DNFs in a row after winning 2 races on the road course, races that he didn't really expect. He was in line for victory until about 20 laps to go, but things just seemed to fall into his lap. There's a big question about whether or not he would race this week. There was a lot of discussion about it. He had a number of family conferences and conferences with Dr. Terry Tremmel in Indianapolis, and it looks like he must have made the right decision. Here's the interval. Al Unser Jr. going by. There goes Michael Andretti, who is also a lap down. Bobby Rahal just 4 seconds behind. There is Rutherford just 8 seconds. So you can see they're still really in it. Emerson Fittipaldi more than 1 lap down, and Rick Mears 14 seconds behind. Here comes Pancho Carter. Good day for Pancho. Runs in the top 10. There goes Al Unser Sr. Steve Chassis has been trying to carry that Chevy stock block. Mario Andretti blasts down, and here comes Tom Sneva, who stays out there despite having some problems in the early stages of this race. Dick Simon in car number 22. Motors in 16th position right now. You can see he's showing 37 seconds behind, but that's 37 seconds and a couple of laps. Denny Sullivan sat on the front row, but now is 1 lap plus 45 seconds down and is in jeopardy of going another lap down to that man, the leader, Al Unser Jr. 123 laps have been completed. No caution flags yet. The average speed is 186.40 miles per hour. If that keeps up easily, this will be a brand new race record speed for the Pocono 500. Well, the first yellow flag of the race has just occurred, and the preliminary report involves Scott Braden, but we have yet to see anything. Here comes Steve Chassis. He was another one who was called as perhaps being in trouble and the reason for the yellow flag. But Chassis motoring down in the pits, but the first caution flag, most unusual here at Pocono after 124 laps. We just told you that the race's average speed was above 185 miles an hour, and this will really slow things down and scramble, at least temporarily, the strategy as far as pit stops go. Everybody came in less than 10 laps ago, so now they got to make the decision. Scott Brayton, by the way, is into the pit area along with Steve Chassis, the crew looking over the Chassis car, and I think they're sitting silently, so it may be curtains for the Genesee Beer Wagon, the number 56 car, the Californian who migrated to the Indianapolis area to drive initially in the USAC sprint car and midget divisions, and then later on was able to land this IndyCar ride. And it's been a struggle for them. They worked very hard in this stock block Chevy to try and keep pace with all the exotic Cosworths. But the yellow flag continues to flutter for the first time today here at Pocono. You know, the IndyCar circuit travels this country far and wide. We get up to the Pacific Northwest. They run down in the Southwest, here in the Northeast. And everywhere we go, we've got a special kind of fan. And here at Pocono, certainly no exception.
Just outside the Pocono Raceway gate stands a sentry position that's raised more than one race fan's eyebrows through the years. 55-year-old Andy Matthews and 71-year-old Al Koibler have been welcoming racegoers with their unique brand of hospitality ever since the track opened. They call themselves the official greeters of Pocono.
I'm Chief doing this here before the racetrack started. I was here already. Before Andretti or anybody was here, I was the first guy here. They didn't want the racetracks in. I said, hey, people, vote the racetrack to come in here. There'd be a lot of money come up here to the mountains. I told them. But they wouldn't listen to me. He said, no, hey, what's the fender bumper there that time? They said, we don't want to hear. Be a lot of gangsters and stuff up there. They said, no way, let them come in. If people bring a lot of money up here, since I opened up a racetrack. So they all voted for the racetrack, and that's how I come in here.
Koibler's property borders the Pocono track and includes his home that he built himself out of rocks found on his property. After watching these two, I thought it might be fun to welcome people to Pocono myself.
Got the tools. Here comes a car. Now, I wave this first, right?
Yep.
Then I wave like this, and I got to talk.
That's right. Yep.
Yeah, racetrack's over here at the corner.
Move
Welcome
on.
to Pocono.
Right
Yep,
the
yep,
bend.
there you
Right
go.
around
Put
the
the
bend.
blinker on.
Go along,
Come on, just a little
that's
wave.
it.
That's
Yep,
all
keep
I'm
it
looking
going.
for.
Keep them.
Here we go. We got to wave.
Keep
Got to
them
wave.
going, Keep them going.
Keep them going. Keep them going. That's
Yeah,
it.
wave back
Keep them
out
going.
there.
Welcome to Pocono.
A quarter of a block away, way back.
Hey, I got to wave. There we go.
Yeah, a lot of waves.
I tell you what, guys. Being an official greeter at Pocono Raceway
Here they come
is a
now.
lot harder work
Hey,
than I
but
thought it would be.
Heavy traffic now.
Back to you, Larry.
Well, I'm glad that was not a completely visual presentation there because it slipped down over Jack's eyes. You know, Gordy, something about those guys, I come here sometimes as early as 8 o'clock in the morning and go home as late as 8 o'clock at night, and they're still out there.
They're always out there. I remember them now that I thought and think about it. I remember, and I always wondered, hey, what the heck are these guys doing out here?
Self-proclaimed official greeters of the Pocono International Raceway. Al Unser Jr. comes out on top during this caution flag race. It's a race that he has dominated, particularly in the last 20 minutes. Al Unser Jr., Johnny Rutherford, Rick Mears, Al Unser Sr., and Bobby Rahal, the top runners right now in the Pocono 500. We are experiencing a lengthy yellow for apparently a blown oil gasket on the Genesee Beer Wagon number 56 car. Steve Chessing the pits trying to get it repaired. We have also been successful in contacting Al Unser Jr., who is right now continuing the lead, and maybe we can do something a little special. But first of all, little Al, how's it going out there? Things look very, very smooth.
Well, you know, I've been very fortunate to have the car right at the beginning of the race. So, you know, now I think Johnny Rutherford and Rick Mears, you know, they're both looking. I guess it, so, you know, I don't know what when the green falls again.
What about the pit infraction? Was it a little difficult to figure out what was going on without radio contact?
And then, you know, I didn't know what was wrong because I didn't make that big of an infraction.
Well, little Al, you've lost radio contact with the pit crew. Jack Carute right now is down with your crew chief, and maybe we can arrange something just a little special. Jack?
Well, that's right, Larry. We're with Dennis Swan, and he cannot communicate with Al Unser Jr., but we're going to give the microphone to Dennis, and hopefully you can transport on to Al any questions they may have. Dennis, here you go. The mic's all yours to talk to Al.
Thank you. Al, can you read me right now?
They've got to translate. They've got to translate to you. You ask the question, and then Larry will ask him.
All right. Al, I want to know about your left front tire.
Al, this is from your crew chief. This is from Dennis. He wants to know about the left front tire. Does everything look routine?
Both front tires are going.
Al, come back on that. Somebody stepped on your lines.
They're good, you know.
Yeah, what I need to know is, do we need to do a 4-tire change to get rid of the push?
Do we need to do a 4-tire change the next time we come in to get rid of the apparent push, Al?
Well, I don't know. I don't think so, you know.
Thank you.
The car's working pretty good. Tell him the car's working pretty good. That I liked a little bit of push that's in it, you know.
Well, apparently Al Jr.
That's the change, gentlemen. I've never had to be able to interview a crew chief that interviews a driver through Larry Nuber. Kind of unusual, but a first for ESPN and television, I believe.
Yeah, it really was, Jack. And I would imagine that Al Unser Jr. really appreciated that because he's been out there in silence. All he's had is the roar of the engine for apparently this entire race, Gordy, and that would be a welcome sign. Human voices.
It certainly helps. It is difficult without your radio.
Well, this time around, the green flag apparently will flutter. We are borrowing one of the team radios. That's our ability and the reason why we've been able to communicate. The green flag is out. Now, the top 5 cars are the ones on the lead lap. Can Al Unser Jr. hold on to the lead? Rick Mears has darted down low. It looks like Mears may have the advantage going into turn number 1, but no. That traditional saying, slamming the door shut as the rest of the field goes by. Al Unser Jr. holds on. Johnny Rutherford running one of those old tried and proven techniques from oval track racing from maybe 25 years ago, able to emerge in second spot. What do you think? think, Gordy? Is this Al Unser Jr.'s race, or do those other guys on the lead lap, namely Rutherford, Mears, Rahal, and his dad, have a chance?
Well, they certainly have a chance. They're all right here, just about evenly spaced out now. Little Al doesn't have the advantage that he had before, and they're all running quick. About the first 5 cars, it looks like, right here is running pretty competitive.
Rutherford surprisingly goes to the inside of Al Unser Jr., and Rutherford, for the first time in 1985, assumes the lead under a green flag condition. He has got to be smiling inside that Lone Star helmet.
Yeah, he sure is, and he's running quick too. He seems to be pulling away from Al just a little bit right now. When they made their stops, they probably got the tire staggered just right on the car, and he's really running swift. You could hear Dennis was concerned about Little Al of a pushing condition, but he said it wasn't too bad, but evidently it is bothering him somewhat.
At least 2 more pit stops will probably take place before this race is over. 5 cars again on the lead lap, and they are the 5 cars up front there. Michael Andretti in the blue and yellow car, which is 6th in line, is also 6th in the race, but unfortunately Michael, probably because of that little minor problem, small, losing a right front wheel. Early in the race, however, he lost the lap. He is 1 lap down. Danny Sullivan is in 7th position. There's the leader, Rutherford. He is also 1 lap down. There's a look at Johnny Rutherford. In 8th is Emerson Fittipaldi. He is 2 laps down. And in 9th, in car number 1, Mario Andretti. 10th, Pancho Carter. They too are 2 laps down. But this guy isn't down, not down at all. Not only has he assumed the lead, but there he is checking the mirror, saying, hey, this is going pretty good. Just how far ahead am I? Gordy, that's something that's a pretty good habit to develop, that whenever you get out of a corner and go down the front stretch, actually move that head and look behind you to make sure nobody is close, right?
Well, yes, it is. There's a spin into the wall.
It looks like it's Rutherford.
Danny Sullivan, I think.
It's either Sullivan or Rutherford. I think it's Johnny, and right in front of Michael Andretti's Johnny Rutherford. Fire coming out of the engine compartment. Johnny moving around inside. Some unburnt fuel there inside the exhaust headers and coming out of the turbocharger, igniting it. It does not look like it will be a major incident, but Johnny Rutherford, after performing so well, it looked like the things were really going to go his way today. Apparently it got away. Gordy, it's tough to tell because we couldn't see it on the line live.
It sure is. He's out there leading the race. Looked like he was running very smooth. I don't know what happened. We didn't see it right at first, but he's just sitting there in the car. I'm sure he's all right, but you can imagine how depressed he is.
Boy, at 200 miles per hour, things happen really quick. Well, Al Unser Jr. is taking this opportunity. This will be a relatively lengthy caution flag to come in and perhaps change those tires that were so much of a question.
Right on going.
He went right through that time, apparently trying to just visually communicate with his crew chief and tell everybody on the crew what he would like to do. Is that what would happen in a situation like this, Gordy? You know you can't talk to them, so if I come in, I can signal to them. Because this caution flag will take a while, I'll have another chance.
He just thought he was going to be the first one in. He probably knew that everybody was going to stop behind him. I don't know why they didn't let him stop and go ahead and fuel up. The pace car wouldn't have caught him. I don't understand.
Well, it's time to make contact with Al again and see exactly if we can get an update. Al, this is Larry Newber again on ESPN. What's going on? Have you had an opportunity, you think, to signal to the crew and give the instructions to them that you want?
Larry, I don't know, you know, I down and talk to my guys, you know, and give it to my guys so that your radio's working to me. My guy's radio ain't working to me. And I want my radio's working, you know.
Well, obviously, Al Unser Jr. wanting to see if there's any possibility. Al, one thing just to give you an update, we are checking on the possibility of getting that radio from us to you down to the crew chief. That might be impossible, but we're working on that possibility. Al Unser Jr. Al Unser Jr. right now is trying to get communications with his crew so that things can be done to get just the right tire setup that he desires. Jack Arute is down in the pit area.
We're here with Dennis Swan, and let's first establish what the situation is. We do not have one of your radios, Dennis. Right. What we have is a monitor which allows us to hear your communications. Now you can hear, but unfortunately we haven't been able to let Al Jr. know that we don't have one of your radios.
Yeah. Larry,
You talk directly to Larry.
Yeah, Larry, what you got to do is you got to tell him we have to stay in line. We'll tell him when to pit. Just stay out. Because of the rain, we can't come in right now. You got to stay up in the queue.
Well, Al, this is Larry again up in control, and some clarification for you. We do have a scanner. It is not one of the team radios, and we have, therefore, no way to get down to you, but your crew chief has said you must stay in line, and they will signal you when to come in. You got a reading on us, Al?
Now, you know, now you're full.
Breaking down real
Well, one more time we'll repeat because we're getting some breakup back from you, Al, just to make sure that you got the message. Dennis has suggested that you stay in line, that they will signal you when to come in because of the rain. They do not want you to pit. And again, we don't have one of the team radios as we thought. It's a scanner, so no way to get it to you. You got a reading on us, Al? Yeah, he's waving. I think he's finally... he's finally getting the signal. Obviously, a little bit of frustration coming from the cockpit of Al Unser Jr. He is concerned because he cannot communicate the way he wants to. There is no radio communication with the crew. If so, he could explain exactly what he wanted. Jack Arute is continuing to monitor this situation down in the pit area.
And Dennis Swan heard his comment, "I just lost this race," and as he walked away, he chuckled and he said, "Let me tell you what, not yet."
Well, we are under caution flag, and I would kind of echo those sentiments. It doesn't seem like not yet. This should be a relatively long caution flag. Johnny Rutherford hitting the outside cement in turn number 1. No apparent injury to Johnny, but really smacking the outside cement wall after leading this race, and that does leave a lot of time. There is Al Unser Jr. scooting underneath Rutherford as he grinds along the cement wall on the outside of that 14-degree bank, 670-foot corner. Johnny Rutherford, who looked like he might be destined for greatness. There you see it just before the impact. Gordy, he spun first, and he almost backed into the wall.
Yeah, he hit with the nose first, though, and it threw it around. Just hope that he didn't hit hard enough that it's hurt his feet. But he was pretty lucky right there that someone didn't get him broadside also.
He's sliding right back down the track in front of Michael Andretti, a lap down Michael, and at that point, Michael just points the race car to where Johnny is and stands on the throttle and tries to get around. But Johnny Rutherford, after that great opportunity to perform well here, looks like he's certainly dead for today. Johnny Rutherford, we will update you on his personal physical condition when this break is over. Stay with us for more of the Domino's Pizza 500. Pennsylvania, where this race has been slowed by a caution flag, the result of Johnny Rutherford apparently losing control in turn number 1. By the way, the initial report is as we watch Rutherford from high atop the main grandstand, you see the car just getting away from him, similar to an incident at the Michigan International Speedway about 3 years ago, doing a 180 and smacking the outside retaining wall, first with the left front, then the left rear, and sliding down the racetrack and just barely being missed by Michael Andretti. Rutherford has reported to the infield hospital just for an examination. There is one of the Horton medical pieces of equipment that are so prominent at all IndyCar kart races. They have become a very important part of this type of racing. For emergency crises, CART is probably the best equipped event organizer in the world. CART has its own traveling medical and safety team. As traumatic as this, Danny Angaias at MIS, reaction has already begun. And there is some solace in the fact that before he stops, help is almost there. The vehicles and equipment are provided by and custom designed by the Horton Company of Columbus, Ohio. All skilled technicians trained to deal with expensive damaged machinery, and school paramedics here helping Mario Andretti and outfitted in bright uniforms.
I don't have enough praise for the CART emergency crew headed by Steve Edwards. I tell you, big or small, they're there with the same urgency and same concerns. Again, you just feel so confident that everything possible is being done whenever you're needed. It's needed, and as I say, you need that sometimes. And again, these are people that are really conscientious and know how to do their job well.
It has become essential to this type of racing. Safety 1, Safety 2, manufactured on GM truck chassis, in effect do the job that 3 or 4 facilities used to, and they're mobile. The large van, the Horton Medical Unit, is equipped as well as some smaller emergency rooms.
The golf cart size unit has also been fitted with life-saving and firefighting equipment. Radio communication from observers around the track allow this boldly painted team to spring into action in an instant. Drivers on the track expect them and make way. Very little verbal communication is needed. Everybody knows exactly what to do this Friday when Sammy Swindell crashed in turn 3.
Our crew is like a well-orchestrated ballet. There are several people on the scene. They all have a responsibility, and they all address certain things. There are people who are looking for fire. I specifically, along with our medical director, address the driver's situation. If there's an extrication of that driver from the car, if he's trapped or compromised in any way, then we address that. Once he's out of the car, then we address cleaning up the scene and putting the track back to green so we can go racing again.
Many racetracks are miles from the closest permanent medical facility. It's all first aid, but unlike first aid you could ever get anywhere else. For critically developing medical situations, there's this.
The center has pretty much everything that a regular hospital has in it. The advantage is that it can be taken out onto the track, and if there's a driver injured on the track, we can hook him up to various life support systems for the trip into a regular hospital.
Is it almost like an emergency room on wheels?
Essentially, that's correct. It has a ventilator, a respirator, and a defibrillator, and various life support systems such as intravenous fluids and technological advantages that we can use.
As frightening as this looks, it almost becomes routine. And whether it be in the crowded pits or in a seemingly distant turn, it's nice to know that help is so close, you don't even have to ask for it.
The reports on Johnny Rutherford continue to be positive. The latest that he did walk from his crumpled racer. He walked to the ambulance and was escorted to the track hospital. But so far, things look to be in pretty good shape. Bobby Rahal once again finds himself in the lead of this race. 139 laps have been completed, and this may finally be Rahal's day. He's been near the front all year long, but it just has not all come together. He may be the winner of this third 500-mile race of 1985. Temporary halt to the proceedings here in the Pocono Mountains, crashing in turn number 1, but he is okay. We've been under a lengthy yellow flag, but the indications are that we might be going green in the next lap, perhaps. Now, a lot of the leaders want to do some work. We have completed 144 laps. A lot of the leaders have indicated, we heard rumors about this up and down pit road, they'd like to come in and perhaps change some tires, top off the fuel. So there's a good possibility we might see some pit action this time around. The leaders creeping around that long turn number 3. They're down below the yellow line. It's difficult to tell because they've been running so slow the last few laps. Here comes Al Unser Jr. Now, earlier recall that he was a little unhappy with the set of tires that he got during the last pit stop. Jack Arute is there.
And Dennis Swan is giving him the signal to bring it in nice and easy. We're under caution. Remember, they've got the radio communication problem. They look over and they're going to change tires. The front tires come off and new skins go on. A little problem on the left front, but no problem, really, because they're attaching the single lug nut. They're filling the car up with fuel. Little Al looks to Dennis Swan. He gives him the signal, and he's off and away.
145 laps are now complete. That lap being completed, of course, under the yellow flag, and the indications continue to be green the next time around. Bobby Rahal will assume the lead in this race. Rahal, who picks up where Little Al leaves off. Rick Mears is running in third and fourth on the same lap. He was 11 seconds behind before the yellow flag, Al Unser Sr. 1 lap down, Michael Andretti continues to motor around this racetrack. In 6th position, the car number 4 of Danny Sullivan. There are 55 laps to go. Remember, this will be a 200-lap race. Emerson Fittipaldi, 7th. Pancho Carter, 8th. Mario Andretti, 9th. All those drivers 2 laps down. And in 10th position, 4 laps in arrears, is Tom Sneva. It's been a tough day for him, but he's been, Gordy, the leader, so to speak, of the second echelon.
Well, yes, it's just they really, Tom, they really don't have the car handling that well. They've had problems all year. It's with the Gurney Eagle, and they just haven't had the development work like Martin Lola has to really be that competitive. I'm sure it's not Tom. It's just they just really don't have things together.
All the leaders have shown the ability to go 30 laps. What that means is we should have 1 more pit stop. 55 laps to go. If you can go 30 laps, I mean, you can make a leisure pit stop around lap 170, 175, depending upon caution flags and whatever else is happening, assuming you got the right setup of tires.
So one more round to go, and then we have a shootout to the end. Remember last year, 4 cars finished within 4 seconds of one another, one of the most exciting finishes of the 1984 season. One more lap to go. This is a break for Bobby Rahal, Gordy. Rahal makes what would have been an unanticipated pit stop.
Right, Rahal's in for his pit stop. I'm surprised the rest of them, the Penske cars and all the rest of them didn't come in if they've only got 1 lap to go, which the starter just held up 1 finger to go, and I'm really surprised that the rest of them didn't come in. I think they made a serious mistake there.
Gordy, that's a good point. In checking the stats, they all came in around lap 135. That means they have to go 65 laps on 1 load of fuel. Or rather 2 loads of fuel. I'm sorry, 1 pit stop. I don't think they can do that.
That'd be awful close. Maybe some of them are hoping there's going to be another yellow. It's the only way they could make it.
Gary Lee has been close and stayed close to the situation involving Johnny Rutherford. Gary?
I'm standing outside the infield medical facility where the report is very good. We just talked with Dr. Steve Alvey, who is the CART medical director. He likened the shot to that of a boxer in the ring. JR was shot right here with the helmet when the helmet was forced up against something inside the cockpit. He is okay. It's a case of staying in the hospital and kind of clearing the cobwebs out of the head. We expect to have the chance to talk with Lone Star JR in about 45 minutes. As an interesting side note, to underscore the camaraderie in this sport of motorsports, it was A.J. Foyt, out of the race earlier, who pedaled down here on his bicycle to check to see if his buddy was okay and if there's anything he could do had JR been injured. Now let's go to Jack back in the pit area.
Actually, if you look beyond me, Gary, Larry, and Gordo, you'll see the Craco Car Stereo Mobile Lounge. Kevin Cogan, who was also involved in that helicopter crash earlier today that we reported at the break of this race, came out of his car complaining of back spasms. Now, nobody really anticipated any problems from Cogan, but that seemed to be the problem. He came out of the car, they didn't have a replacement driver, and we're back to green, and Cogan's in here.
Well, Rick Mears finds himself atop here the standings. First time in a long time that Rick has been up front. Michael Andretti is setting the pace as far as all the cars in the racetrack, but we told you earlier that Michael is 1 lap behind. Well, he's made that lap up, Gordy. A caution flag right now would put him right back in it, but he's got a pretty big order right now.
That's right. If they had a caution now, then he could come around and be behind the pack, and he'd be in the same lap. And he's still running real swift, so he would be a tough contender if they had another yellow.
Gordy, I think you made a very strong observation about pit strategy. The Penske cars did not come in. We had them pitting with more than 60 laps to go in this race. We think they have to come in at least 2 more times, and some people, like Al Unser Jr. namely, may have to pit only 1 more time. There is Rick Mears setting the pace here at Pocono, putting a lap on the number 2 car, Tom Sneva. Sneva goes from 2 to 3 laps behind, but he does not lose a position in the race. He runs in 10th. Rick Mears, who has sat out most of this season but runs selective races, he's had a pretty good year in those races in which he's competed, Gordy.
Well, he's been running pretty strong when he's been running, but he's been having car problems, like at the Speedway. They had car problems there. And it just, you know, like I said earlier, 1 year, nothing goes wrong. And then the next year, you're with the same team, you got the same crew, and it seems like everything goes wrong. You can't do anything right, but yet you can't put your finger on it because you have the same of everything. But still, something happens.
Been a lot of talk recent years about what is the best route to IndyCar racing. So many drivers have come from Europe or Formula One racing, like that guy, Emerson Fittipaldi, just going by the screen. Rick came from a most unusual source, off-road racing. Al Unser Jr., or Al Unser Sr., rather, they're going by, is a guy who made one of the traditional routes to get to IndyCar racing. But for Rick, off-road racing, and it's a route that heretofore probably would not even been considered as far as the right type of training ground to get to IndyCar racing, but Mears has proven that that works too, Gordy.
Well, that's true, but, you know, on the other hand, some drivers have the natural talent. It really doesn't make a difference where they come from. They have the natural talent. Other drivers get this all kinds of schooling in every different types of cars, and, you know, they still just not quite make it, but some of them have the natural talent. But nowadays, it doesn't seem like they go to like the Skip Barber School. They run a couple years, and they go to Super V's and run 1 year, and here they are. And they don't have that much experience. They should be getting something with a little more horsepower and a little more speed.
150 laps complete, and talking about Formula One, there was the Austrian Grand Prix this weekend, and the results, kind of like IndyCar racing, they tightened up the point standings. Alain Prost was the winner of that race. Alain was the fastest driver and the biggest winner in 1984. Winning here, he ties the point standings with Michele Alboreto, who finished third in this race. You see Johansson and Ferrari was fourth, De Angelis was fifth, and Mark Schur was in sixth position. Now the latest from the pit area. There is Bobby Rahal. He may have been cited for a pit infraction. If so, the officials are conferring right now. Rahal may be subject to a black flag here in the next couple of laps.
Well, I didn't see it happen, Larry, but, you know, evidently it happened if he's going to get a black flag, and it's a shame. We've had a lot of that today.
Boy, what a crushing blow that would be to his hopes. They have struggled and worked so hard. We have a yellow flag on the racetrack. This might be a break for Rahal. Now, if he is going to get black flag, we have an incident, we believe, in turn number 2.
The car is still rolling. He's up against the wall, so I don't know if he spun and the engine died or what, but it's Michael Andretti just rolling. Looked like he had the right front or something wrong, because it's just slight.
He may have touched the wall, or maybe he just had a tire equalized, but that is more an equalization. That's a downright flat, Gordy.
This is certainly going to be a break for several cars that didn't pit on the last yellow.
Excellent point. This really equalizes the field in terms of fuel consumption. Everybody will have an opportunity, if they so choose to exercise it, to come in. Andretti is going to exit. He's going to leave the car there, and that is going to make for a relatively lengthy caution flag with 152 laps to go. That 185-mile-per-hour average speed of about 100 laps to go has been evaporated. We've had a lot of caution flags here in the last few laps, but the race goes on with little more than 40 laps to go. $158 laps have been completed, and this the third jewel of the IndyCar Triple Crown for 1985. Al Unser Sr., the leader, 43 laps to go. Bobby Rahal, whom we think is in line for a stop-and-go penalty, is in second. Al Unser Jr., despite all those earlier problems with tires, third. Rick Mears running soundly in fourth, and Danny Sullivan a lap down, but in fifth position. In sixth position, Emerson Fittipaldi right up there in the point standings. Mario Andretti, who has led the point standings for most of the year. Then Pancho Carter, Tom Sneva, and Dennis Firestone makes an initial appearance in the top 10. The point standings have been interesting in 1985. Mario Andretti truly dominated the first quarter of the season, but now a virtually three-way tie. Andretti, Fittipaldi, and Al Unser Sr., who's performing very well here today and may get out of Pocono with the point lead. Al Unser Jr. certainly still in it, 63 points. Danny Sullivan is fifth, mostly on the strength of that Indianapolis 500 win, and Tom Sneva in sixth position with 45 points. We're just about all set to go under green flag. 158 laps again have been completed. Expect them to come in one more time for a fuel stop. All the bets, at least at this point, are off. Everybody's had an opportunity to kind of refresh themselves, to get a load of fuel. The only drama that we expect in terms of the pits in the next couple of laps, Bobby Rahal, the initial report was he is going to get a stop-and-go black flag penalty. Al Unser Sr. accelerates coming out of the long turn number 3, anticipating the green flag. The flicker of green. Rahal comes into the pits, and Al Unser Sr. takes over the field at top speed, green flag speed, going into turn number 1. There is Rahal coming in. He makes a stop, go, and this is a real advantage for him, Gordon, and we understand this is something that was kind of negotiated, or maybe the word is clarified by our car owner during the last caution flag.
Well, yes, if he has to stop instead of waiting to get up to speed, till everybody's up to speed, it's the best for him to stop right when they wave the green flag, because you're not up to speed. And this way, he's only about a third of a lap behind right now, so he has a very good chance yet. There might be another yellow, and he'll be able to catch up.
Al Unser Sr. leading this race. Some of the other people still out there. Dick Simon continues the race. Remains to be seen whether or not Michael Andretti will be able to come back. Steve Chassis, despite some valve cover leaking problems, races. And Scott Brayton is still on the racetrack. But there are 4 drivers still on the lead lap. It looks like the race will come down to those 4, depending on caution flags not intervening. Jack Arute has some more details on that pit infraction. Jack?
Well, we talked about the pit infraction, but actually what it was a similar situation that occurred to Al Unser Jr. and Al Unser Sr. It was moving back into race traffic, that yellow line that's at the exit of pit road. According to CART officials, Bobby Rahal put 2 wheels, the right side, over that line before he was up to full speed.
Also, going back to that Rutherford incident, the initial report was that the side pods were coming loose from the number 6 Valvoline Hawk car the Pancho Carter is driving, and debris coming from that might have punctured a tire, correction, not on the Rutherford incident, on the Michael Andretti situation, and punctured the right front tire. The black flag coming out again Gordy, you were watching that. Did you see who it was given to?
It looks like it was for Al Unser Jr., and I think that maybe he got by a car a little too quick down here, number 3, before the green came out.
So it looks like Al Unser Jr. may be called in again for the second time in this race. Now we're going to show you the restart. Remember, you're not supposed to pass any cars until you go by the official starter. Now watch the extreme right-hand side of the screen. Al Unser Jr. creeping up on possibly some slower cars in the back of the field. Now the green flag is out. He goes to the underside of Mario Andretti. He passes at least Mario. They're still in turn number 3. He has not crossed the start-finish line yet. He is going to be called in for the second time today. Here he comes again. No radio involved there. There was no factor that the radio played in that. It was just a miscalculation on the racetrack. Stop. They're taking the time to do a little bit of a wing adjustment. Gordy, I'll bet you they're going to let it all hang out because they've got a lot of ground to make up now in just 38 laps.
Well, he knows that he's got to make it up, and the only way that he'll make it up in this short of laps is if they do have another yellow.
Gordy, what do you do if you know that you're going to have to go a little faster than everybody else? Would you take some of the weight out of it, lift that car up, and let it run a little loose so it can go a little faster?
Not necessarily. It just depends on how your car's handling. They got a yellow flag now. This is going to be a break.
What an advantage for Al Unser Jr. What a tremendous break. He had dropped to at least 3/4 of a lap behind the rest of the field. This caution flag comes out. He now has an opportunity to move up, and that little miscue at the last green flag bodywork coming off of car number 6, the reason for this yellow flag, the second time in the last 20 laps that a similar occurrence has happened. But what an opportunity for Al Unser Jr. It negates that penalty that he just forced upon himself by passing under the yellow flag.
Well, it's a good thing it happened to him right then, and believe me, on this next restart, he won't do it again.
Wow. Dramatic turn of events. Ray Hall now taking the time to come in again. Apparently a tire change. Maybe Ray Hall just wasn't perfectly satisfied with maybe the tire stagger that they got on that last set of tires. Gordy, you might tell the people, how can just getting a set of tires, we call it a bad set, all the tires come out of the same mold, they're good, but what exactly does that mean?
Well, one tire will grow more than the other. The right side takes all the heat in the punishment here, and they might grow, and the left rear might not grow enough, and the stagger will be off enough where it will make the car either too loose or it will be pushing too much where you really got to get out of the throttle. So, but hopefully, the most of them, they try and get their tires all broke in and get them up to temperature and get the stagger set on in their practice before the race comes. But sometimes it does not happen.
You try to avoid getting surprises. Well, caution flag after caution flag here, and the last half of this race has really slowed down the pace. It was a great equalizer for Al Unser Jr., and he's in it once again. Maybe he will win his first 500-mile race here today.
Pancho Carter had an exciting experience out there. You lost part of the race car. What happened?
Apparently we had the side pod pull loose, and it opened up a gap in the rear bodywork, and it just laid the engine cover back over the rear wing going into the tunnel turn. So a little exciting on the field, Valvoline Hawk here.
Here in the pit area, we've been trying to second guess the track conditions because of the sporadic rain we've had. How are the conditions?
Track really is in rather good shape. Could run speeds of running in the high 80s, low 90s, and then made a tire change and got the car handling better. Could run some 196 and stuff, which enabled us to just make up one of the laps that we'd lost early on in the race. So the Valvoline car was working extremely well, and it's a shame that it dropped out. We'd hoped to make up our other lap and get in the battle with the leaders, because right at the point I could outrun the leaders.
Now it's time for him to go stock car racing, and elsewhere in the pit area is Jack Arud.
We're going to take a look backwards to May at Indianapolis, Indiana. The situation for Al Unser Sr. was a one-lap penalty because of this air hose when he ran over it during his first pit stop. And now we ask the questions, what if? What if he had been able to go on without that one-lap penalty? Maybe he, instead of his teammate Danny Sullivan, would have won the Indianapolis 500. Maybe he would be way on top in points in 1985 at this point in time. But one thing we do know for sure, the last pit stop while we were away in commercial came fairly early as far as our calculations are concerned, and we watched as they called him in, and Roger Penske came from his perch way down by Rick Mears' pit and tried to wave it off, tried to keep them back out there. But they had already brought him in and had already connected all the fuels. Let's go back upstairs.
Getting ready to go green again, and Gordy, that echoes something that you mentioned during the commercial break. We'll pick up on that in just a second. The green flag is out. Rick Mears now on top of this race. It's Mears, Al Unser Jr., and the number 3 car of Bobby Rahal, who run in the top 3 positions. This yellow flag has bunched the top 3 guys up. Al Unser pit stop, he starts this race, restarts this race from the back of the pack. Rick Mears, with only 34 laps to go, would like to break away from the draft. Now, it's not that much of a factor in these cars on this racetrack, but it's enough that if you can get out in front of it, it might work to your advantage, Gordon.
Well, it certainly could help. It's a lot easier running out there by yourself than it is with another car dragging along behind you, or you following another car. It's much easier in the clean air. That's what happened to me in Indianapolis in 1984 when I lost it and got in the wall. I got in some bad air behind Tom Schneeler.
The blue move-over fly coming out for the drivers who are a lap down. Al Unser Jr., Danny Sullivan moving around Dennis Firestone. Sullivan is 2 laps behind Al Unser Jr., who of course is on the lead lap, and Jr. having to work a little hard there, getting down to the inside of Dennis Firestone. If he wants to contend with Rick Mears for this race, it's not late yet, but he can't spend too much time getting around somebody who's at least 2 laps down. There he goes by, going down the long pond straightaway, turn number 2. That's the treacherous corner here on this race course. It goes over the tunnel. There are some bumps in the bottom. They were out there earlier this week with special equipment smoothing out that turn. And I understand, Gordon, it really helped. And the Indy cars were sailing over it pretty smoothly in practice and qualifying.
Well, I know turn 2 has always been a difficult turn since we've been here, because the tunnels go right underneath it. And in the winter, it freezes and thaws and settles. And that's where the majority of your accidents happen, is over the tunnel in turn 2.
Well, the question becomes, can any of these cars go the distance on the load of fuel that they have right now? No, it's unlikely, because as we told you earlier, that window is normally around 28 or 30 laps, and we still have more than 30 laps to go. But the big concern was they brought Al Unser Sr. in so early, Gordy, that he may have to make 2 more pit stops. A little more about that.
Well, it looks like it, Jeff. They brought him in with 35 laps to go, and unless they have a yellow here and able to run under the yellow for a few laps, he's definitely going to have to come in for another stop. But it's still going to be awful close for the rest of them, because they still got 33, 34 laps to go here, and running as hard as they are for the lead here, it's going to be awful close.
It also comes down to cheerleading time if you're a team leader. If you're a crew chief, you got to pump your guys up down in the pits and say, look, it looks like this thing is going to come off with 1 more pit stop. There are 4 of us here that are involved with the possibility to win. If somebody makes a mistake in the pit area, that probably is just going to just about eliminate their chances if there are no more caution flags.
Well, definitely this late in the race, Larry, because when you only have a few laps to go, 5 or 10 laps to go, you have to make a stop. If you make even 2 or 3 seconds in the pit, a mistake or something, or the driver's slow getting in or out, it's going to definitely cost you the race.
Well, Rick Mears out front right now as he comes down the front stretch. 2/3 of a mile. 3,700 feet on this long front stretch here at the Pocono International Raceway. You go into turn number 1, the highest bank corner. There's Danny Sullivan lap down. Here comes Al Unser Jr., who runs in 2nd place. This corner right here is the only place in the racetrack where you use the brakes. And really, it's like an insurance policy. You go into that corner, Gordy, and you pump them just to assure yourself that they're there if you need them, right?
Well, sometimes you might press down on them just a little bit. But if your car is handling real well, you know, you kind of forget about the brakes there. If you know your car is working real well, you really don't need any brakes there.
Jackaroo down in the pit area.
You know, gentlemen, you talk about how cream will rise to the top. Roger Penske is one car owner that's won more than his share of 500-mile contests. Early in the race, if you recall, Rick Mears and also Al Unser started to back off a little bit from the torrid pace. What we found when we asked Roger about it was said, hey, why? Is there something wrong with the cars? And all he said to me is, don't you know this is a 500-miler? And now when it's down and dirty time to show your stuff, look at the Penske cars and where they're running.
I'm not completely convinced that everybody, Gordon, is showing us everything they have. They all know they got 1 more stop to make at least, and after that last pit stop, that's the time to start laying the aces on the table.
Well, that's right. And, you know, if they do make a stop, it's going to be awful close to the end. It looked like Rick has kind of opened it up pretty good, and like they said earlier, the first part of the race, he was running pretty slow, but he was conserving fuel, and you got to, like they say, you got to go 500 miles, and just about holding the same distance here between Rick and Little Al.
Well, 44.219 seconds was the time that Rick Mears turned in qualifying. That's an average speed of over 203 miles per hour. Now, late in the race, let's see just how quickly Rick Mears is getting around this racetrack. Obviously, you don't run at the same speed in the race that you run during qualifying. Loads of fuel, particular setup of the car, the condition of the racetrack, all those have an effect on exactly how well that car performs and how fast it really goes. After 170 laps, by the way, the average speed had dropped down to 149 miles per hour, and that's under Johnny Rutherford's 1974 record run. Rick Mears coming through turn number 3. Remember, this is not an oval. This is a triangle or tri-oval. 44, 45 seconds coming up, crossing the line, stopping the clocks in the time of 46.3 seconds, and that works out to an average speed of about 194 miles an hour. That really is about what you would expect at this point of the race, right, Gordon?
Yes, you know, you drop off 6 to 10 miles an hour from what your qualifying is. Sometimes even more than that, but I think, you know, the top 4 guys here are probably running pretty strong right now because there's not that many laps yet to go, and they know they got to make a pit stop.
Well, there's been a lot of speculation about Rick Mears in 1985. Will he or will he not drive any more races? How about the road courses? Those seem to be the real big problem for him.
You have been driving the pace car and watching Al Unser Sr. in your ride going after the championship. Any prognosis now on how soon you'll be back on the road courses?
Well, it's really going to just depend on how everything unfolds, but I would say more than likely we'll just about pass on the rest of the year. This year's shot as far as points go and everything with us anyway, and that way we can just go ahead and do some testing and get everything back to 100%, and I don't want to take anything else away from Al. I took Milwaukee away from him. I feel bad about that now because that's just more points he'd have, and that hurt him, and I don't feel so good about that, so I don't want to take anything else from him.
Gordy, he is not a member of that illustrious class of 65 like yourself and Al Unser Sr., but these two guys have been very gracious to each other, and Rick Mears has joined the fraternity, hasn't he?
Well, he certainly has. Rick is a heck of a competitor and a great loser. I know at the Speedway when I won and he finished second, he was a lot happier over that than I would have been. I'll have to admit that.
Just a comment, there is Al Unser Jr. in the background. The gap has definitely closed. Al Unser Jr. in the red, white, and blue Domino's number 30, as in 30-minute delivery, going after the Pennzoil Z7 number 5 race car. There is Rick Mears. 175 laps have been completed. Al Unser Jr. running in second position. We'll be back with the exciting finish and at least one more pit stop here in the Domino's Pizza 500 after these. Can Al Unser Jr. do it? John Kopp, Jack Arud, and Gary Lee back at Pocono, and with Rick Mears sitting behind the wheel of the Pennzoil Z7 car today. Means the 4th time this year that he's raced, the exact same number of times that he's driven the pace car, Gordon. Question, at this point in the race, one more pit stop to go, remember, it looks like Junior is catching him. What do you think? You follow him, just be content with that? Or do you pass Rick Mears and take your chances before this last stop?
No, if I was Al Jr. and my car was handling, looks like as well as he was, I think I would go ahead and pass Rick, because it's not easy running a car back there in the dead air. And if he's running well enough, he should definitely, I would think, go around him.
Here's another call to make. Do you follow the leader? If Mears pits on this lap or in 2 laps, do you follow him in? Or do you stay in your own game plan and pit whenever you see fit? Well, I think we just got the answer. Gary Lee is standing by in the Doug Shearson Domino's Pizza pit, ready to call this pit stop by Al Unser Jr.
And indeed, here he comes. The bright green hat on Dennis Swan. Swan indicates where he's supposed to stop. He stopped right on the money. The car going up on the jacks. Well, it's not up yet. They're not going to change the tires. They're not changing tires. They're just topping off the fuel. It should be a good, fast stop for Al Jr. He revs the engine so frequently. We've seen these engines die at pit stops. He revs it up, and he's underway.
I'll tell you why I'm doubly shocked, Gordon. How did they communicate that? How did Junior tell the crew, hey, these tires are great, don't touch them?
Well, by the speeds he was running. You know, he's out there, he's running fast, and he's catching Rick, so they know the car was really working well. And if they were to change it and get the stagger off, it could very easily cost him the race.
Now, a big sigh of relief from that team. They have gotten out of the way, so to speak. Their pit stop, their final one here in this 500-mile race. Now, things will be okay as long as Rick Mears has to stop underneath the green flag. Things will be okay as long as Al Unser Sr. has to stop and Bobby Rahal under similar conditions. But a caution flag could really work to the advantage of the other 3. Although they have to come in, Junior does not. So even under a caution flag conditions, if that should happen, Al Unser Jr. should find himself in the lead. Rick Mears has qualified on the pole twice this year, both here and at Michigan. His best finish was at Milwaukee when he qualified 3rd, but finished 3rd in the race. At Indianapolis, he was the 10th fastest qualifier, but dropped out of the race with throttle linkage problems and finished only in 21st position. Bobby Rahal is another driver who has turned in truly a strong performance here at Pocono this afternoon. Rahal in the beginning really had to be looking over his shoulder because so many little things have gone wrong with that car. It's been like an instant replay of the early part of the 1984 season. 1985 has been a struggle for them also. But things seem to have come together for them. But right now, it just doesn't look like it's quite enough. Al Unser Jr. and Rick Mears look like they have the advantage, Gordy.
Well, it's going to depend on a lot on the pit stops. He's running quick enough. He's running there pretty close to the rest of them. But the pit stops, if they could just have a 2 or 3 second quicker pit stop, and then the rest, he could be right there with them.
Pocono finishes third and fifth in the last 3 years. This is the 4th time that Rahal has run in the Domino's Pizza 500. One of the new faces, really, as Sullivan comes into a pit. Remember now, Sullivan, he's in the top 10, but not in contention for a win. He has risen to the top runner of those who are at least 1 lap behind. He was in 5th position before this pit stop. Roger Penske and crew going to work as Sullivan comes in. Chuck Sprague, the guy who won so many awards at Indianapolis after that sterling performance in the 500, heads up the crew that performs today's, hopefully, final service on this year's Indianapolis 500 champion. Now, one thing to keep in mind, it's very important how much time you lose or gain entering the pits or exiting the pits. It's one thing just the time to stop itself, but how you get in and how you get out is really critical.
Oh, that's true, Larry. You know, an actual pit stop should be time from the time they go across the start-finish line till they come clear around, make their pit stop, and go back around and come across again. That's a true pit stop from there. You know what the driver's making up or losing there, and you also know what the pit crew's doing.
19 times this guy has carried the checkered flag after an Indianapolis car race. By the way, at 180 laps, that was just 5 miles to go. 450 miles complete, 50 miles to go. There have been a total of 23 lead changes among 8 drivers. The average speed on the way up, and Mears getting very high that time, out of the groove and up into the gray stuff, the marbles, but no harm, no foul, I guess. The average speed, by the way, had gone up to 151 miles an hour. Gordy, can that happen when you know you're coming in for a pit stop, checking the gauges, you know you got to check the pit board the next time you come by? You're kind of busy with a lot of other things.
Well, really, when you're running through the corner, though, Larry, you're not really looking at your gauges and the pit board like that. He might have just, you know, run exceptionally hard through there, and the car might slip just a little bit. But he wasn't in that much danger.
Rick Mears, the young man from Bakersfield, California, who surprised really some of the IndyCar contingent when he came up about 7 or 8 years ago. They didn't really see him coming. He didn't come, as we mentioned, through the traditional sources, but once he showed up, it really didn't take long to recognize that Mr. Mears was for real, did it?
Well, that's right. Rick had a lot of rides that really were not that competitive, you know, and Roger Penske having the
20%. And in this day and age, believe me, that's very strong, because there are a lot of highly competitive teams. Mears giving a wave to Dick Simon that time as they went between turns 2 and 3. Simon moving over and letting Rick go by. He stays out for one more lap. Rick Mears yet to make that final pit stop. 16 laps to go, and it looks like this might come down to a shootout between Rick Mears in the Penske car and Al Unser Jr. Every Thursday evening here on ESPN, normally scheduled at 7:30 p.m., join me along with Bob Jenkins for the latest from the world of automobile racing, even boats and motorcycles on Speed Week. Now, Bob is vacationing, maybe working over in Europe, covering the Formula One circuit. That will certainly be one of the features on Speed Week, along with the Indy cars as well as the Grand National cars. Thursday, 7:30 here on ESPN Speed Week. Now, here's the situation. 12 laps to go. Rick Mears leads this race. He has not pitted yet. He has one more to go. He has averaged 151 miles an hour after 180 laps. The race record held by Johnny Rutherford, almost 157 miles per hour. If this race continues under green flag, we may have a new race record. This is an important pit stop, and Jack Arute is there.
And the strategy has been laid out by Roger Penske. Fuel only, no tires, and it's going to be a time stop. The stopwatch is clicking off. They're only going to take enough fuel to go the distance, hopefully, for the 500-mile contest. Roger Penske looking over, holding his hand out. They've been tapped, and he's away. A quick stop only for fuel, a gamble.
Al Unser Jr., there he is, what we believe to be his closest adversary, is moving now toward turn number 3. Mears is not yet up to speed. Al Unser Jr. off of turn number 3, onto the front stretch. He can accelerate now up to as much as 200 miles an hour. Rick Mears comes from 0. Rick Mears moves around to the inside of turn number 1. Still not up to speed. Al Unser Jr. motoring around. There he is entering turn number 1. Mears is moving up into the groove as he approaches the Long Pond straightaway. And it looks like that Rick Mears is going to get away with about a 3 or 4 second advantage over Al Unser Jr. Gordy, how do you see it?
Well, it looks like definitely that Rick had a better pit stop than Al Jr. because when Al Jr. pitted, they were right together on the track, and now they're just about a straightaway apart. And with only 10 laps left to go, it's very doubtful if he ever catches.
Bobby Rahal, Al Unser Jr. are now in first and second, but they are yet to stop. What they hope is that a caution flag would come out here in the next couple of laps. It's getting late. Both of them got to be stretching the exact fuel mileage that they're getting this time. Al Unser Sr. stopped for the last time on lap 164, and Bobby Rahal for the last time on lap 163. So I would say they can go 3, maybe the most 4 laps. Everybody's shown the ability to go 30 laps, so they're not yet stretching it, Gordy, but it's getting late. What do you think, Jackaroo?
Well, I'll tell you what, Larry, in this world of high tech and computers on the pit road, here is the stick that was used to signal the fuel man that the stop had sufficient fuel to go the distance. When the stopwatch clicked off the magic number, he reached out, tapped him on the shoulder, and said, "Get on."
Of course, that stick was probably designed by a computer and came out of a pipe machine, and there are probably all sorts of high-tech technology into that, don't you imagine, Gordy?
Oh, that could very well be.
Rick Mears, 191 laps complete. Al Unser Jr. not in the picture. He is now 1 lap down officially to Rahal and Al Unser Sr., but that'll at best be temporary. Now, we've seen those stops taking anywhere from 15 to 20 seconds. By the time you slow down and speed up, Gordy, it equates to about 45 or 50 seconds. So everybody is still right on the beam that they were on a few laps ago. But again, it keeps coming back to this guy and the other guy you just saw, the one in the red, white, and blue car. Now, we're looking for the interval. There is first place in turn 3. That's Mears. Al Unser Jr. has yet to emerge. He's still coming through turn number 2 down the backstretch. And you can see it's a big interval visually. And I don't know that he can make that up in 8 laps, Gordon.
No, not that much a distance unless Rick starts having problems. He'll never be able to make up that much.
Repeating once again, Rahal and Al Unser Sr. not pushing it yet. We figure they got 1 or 2 more laps before they get to the point where they're really extending themselves. But they have to come in one more time. Now, where are they on the racetrack? Right now, the number 3 car of Rahal is 11 seconds ahead, and Rahal now coming in. Rahal ready to go, and Gary Lee is there.
One time stop for Rick Mears. This is another time stop as the yellow flag comes out. What's the problem on the racetrack?
Debris between turns 2 and turn 3. It looks like something off of Johnny Rutherford's car, but that certainly is not possible because Rutherford crashed out a number of laps ago. Rahal powers out. Remains to be seen whether or not this will give anybody an advantage in terms of laps lost. This could scramble the standings. You just never know. Al Unser Jr. going by Rahal. I would suggest that keeps them on the same lap. Bobby having to do a little bit of darting there to avoid the debris as well as the emergency vehicles out on the racetrack. But this for Al Unser Sr. takes a little bit of the pressure off. He had not pitted yet. He can now come in and pit leisurely under the caution flag. I think we'll get out of this with 4 cars still on the lead lap. About 5 laps to go, Gordon, and they might be all together on the speedway.
It's sure going to be a heck of a race if all 4 of these are together for the last 4 or 5 laps here. It's going to be a heck of a race.
You know, things happen so quickly, we did not get an opportunity to really assess, was Rick running faster than Al Jr.? They had both completed their last pit stop, and Rick got out of that with a big advantage over Jr., but we just couldn't tell. So right now, a lot of question marks, and I guess it's time for those of you at home to pick your favorites. By the way, all those guys that we picked in the early stages of the race, I think the guys down in the pit area went for Al Unser Sr. He's still in it. I went for Rahal. He had a chance, but nobody really ISO'd in on Mears and Al Unser Jr. They look to be the 2 guys to beat. Well, the body panel coming off of the number 42 car, really interesting car. You know, there were parts taken off of the wall in a restaurant at Hurry Sundown in Indianapolis, Indiana. They were displaying old and used Indianapolis car parts, and a part was actually taken off the wall and applied to this race car for action here this week at Pocono. Who says that this is only a rich man's sport? Well, this last caution flag with well under 10 laps to go, 194 laps officially have been completed, could make this a very dramatic finish. Who are you going to pick? One of the Unsers? Will it be Bobby Rahal, or can Rick Mears pull it off?
adjustment to the front wing, and he's underway. So a very last-minute decision to bring Al Sr. in.
Gordy, something that might have played into that decision was that the rest of the leaders are in the back of the field. There aren't going to be that many cars separating the four of them.
Well, that's true. There's not that many cars out there, and in a big track like this, it should be pretty easy to get by. But I don't know if they thought about it or not, but one thing that might have really helped them is they had a good, fresh set of cool tires left to stick on. They had plenty of time to put them on. It might have won the race for them.
Well, the indications we are getting is that we will go green the next lap. Al Unser Sr. is the fourth car in the lead lap. The leader with 4 laps to go. Yes, we have not cleared off the debris, and I don't think quite as quick a time as I expected, Gordy. Only 4 laps to go. We will complete lap 197 this time. Mears is the leader. Al Unser Jr. running in second. Bobby Rahal running in third. Al Unser Sr. in fourth, and they are in heavy traffic. The best trafficker might win this race.
Well, that's true. And just hopefully the cars that have been lapped will get down out of the way and let them put on a race.
Okay, quick rundown of the rest of them. Sullivan is fifth. Fittipaldi is sixth. Andretti. Mario is seventh. And eighth is Tom Sneva. Ninth is Dennis Firestone. 10th is Dick Simon. Those cars still on the racetrack. Steve Chassis 11th. And Pancho Carter, the last car to drop out of this race up to this point, will be given 12th position. Just 3 laps to go after we get the green flag. They are accelerating. They are at full throttle already. Out of turn number 4, the crowd is on its feet, cheering wildly. Rick Mears trying to find a way to get around. Al Unser Jr. reads the situation.
Right here, it's kind of unusual that Mario's not getting out of the way and letting them go, because he's been in situations like this. But now the gap is opening up, and it doesn't look like little Al's going to be able to get it.
Gordy, I'll tell you, there's such an interval that has opened up. I don't know that it's necessarily a matter of courtesy. I don't think Al Jr. is able to get around Mario. Mario, of course, is racing for position. He doesn't know exactly where he is on the racetrack. He knows he's laps behind. I think he would make way for Al Jr. if Al Jr. really showed the strength to get around. He doesn't look like he can get in trouble. That's Dick Simon blowing an engine here late in the race with 198 laps completed. Will he be spreading oil on the racetrack? Will this race end under the yellow flag?
Well, it looked like
Bobby Rahal coming in. Possibly a bad tire. What do you think, Gordy?
Well, I don't understand why Rahal stopped, but I think the oil from Simon's, he got down low, and there might not even have been any oil, so you're not going to see any yellow. They're going to be able to race to the finish.
The right rear going down on Bobby Rahal. That monitoring off the radio. We believe the white flag coming up. Yes, starter Nick Fornaro waving the right flag, and Rick Mears has a comfortable lead. Rick Mears looks like he may be making the most of one of his infrequent rides in the 1985 season into turn number 1. He's got 2 straightaways and a half to go. He'll now approach the long pond straightaway down the B, almost the backstretch, 3/5 of a mile in length. It's pretty long, but it sets you up for the most precarious corner in this racetrack. He moves to the inside of Emerson Fittipaldi. Rick Mears over the tunnel corner, now down to the North Straight, 1/3 of a mile, 1,780 feet. Now he approaches turn number 3. It's not a negative camber corner, but sometimes it seems like it because it's so long, agonizingly long. Rick Mears comes out of turn number 3, looks up, and looks like he's going to win a 500-mile race, and the checkered flag is for Rick Mears. Al Unser Jr. will net second position. Al Unser Sr. is third, and Bobby Rahal, after that very late pit stop for a tire that has gone down, is relegated to a disappointing 4th position. But considering the year that Bobby Rahal has had, Gordy, that has got to be a victory almost.
Well, yes, I'm sure he's happy just to finish the race, but if they punctured a tire there at the last end, that shows you some of his bad luck that's been going with him all year. But to be able to finish the 500 miles and 200 laps, he's done a great job today.
Rick Mears and Al Unser Jr. pulling alongside of each other and exchanging some congratulations, the camaraderie that goes along with big-time Indianapolis car racing in the decades of the 80s. Rick Mears will join recent winners Danny Sullivan, Teo Fabi, and himself, who back in 1982 picked up the checker after the Pocono 500. A.J. Foyt was the winner in 81, Bobby Unser in 80, Foyt again in 79. Al Unser was the victor here in 1978, and Sneva was the 77 winner. Well, checking the time on that, we may be close to a new race record speed. They were approaching Johnny Rutherford's 1974 track record of almost 157 miles an hour. Lots of green flag racing there in the latter stages of this race. We'll be back with more, including the winner's interview after this from Pocono, Pennsylvania. Time Indy 500 winner, the 3-time IndyCar champion Rick Mears.
is gracing victory lane. When the season began, I don't know that even he himself would have thought that this would happen, but he's the winner of a 500-mile race. Rick Mears has won almost $3 million in IndyCar racing, and today will certainly help, and our Jackaroo is there.
Welcome home, Rick Mears, to victory lane.
Thank you very much. I tell you, it's been a long road getting here, almost a year now, but hey, these guys just did a super job on the Pennzoil car. It worked great all day, and hey, our pit stops, that's where I passed most everybody on the racetrack was in the pits. They did a hell of a job, and I can't thank them enough. Everything went great.
Now, early in the race, it looked as if maybe you were called to back out of the throttle a little bit. You dropped off from your pole position speed, and it looked like maybe you were just going to wait until things waned down to the last 50 or 100 miles.
Well, that wasn't really the case. You know, the weather changed dramatically for today for the race, and my car just wasn't suited for it. The stagger climbed on me a little bit, and the car got a little loose to start. So I just had to backpedal it and just wait until we had a series of pit stops so that I could come in and make the changes I want. And 500 miles, you got to work all day to work the last 20 miles, and that's what it's all about.
How about victory lane? It's been a while since you've been here. What are your feelings? I mean, did you ever doubt that you'd get back here?
No, with the team I'm with, I knew I'd get back sooner or later. I just didn't know when, and it's a great feeling. I can't thank all of them enough.
Well, that's the story from victory lane. Let's go upstairs to Larry Newberg.
All right, Rick Mears winning for the second time in 6 starts. The Winner's Circle interview has been brought to you by Goodyear. Goodyear tires and Goodyear service for more good years in your car. Back with some final thoughts after this. This is from the Pocono International Raceway in Pocono, Pennsylvania, where Rick Mears has returned once again to victory lane in a 500-mile race. Back at Pocono, where Rick Mears is still celebrating his 4th IndyCar 500-mile race win. The 200 laps today were completed in the time of 3 hours and 31 minutes, an average speed of almost 152 miles an hour, not a new track record. There were 8 different leaders, 26 times the lead exchanged hands, 5 caution flags for a total of 33 laps. The Domino's Pizza 500 has been brought to you by the STP Corporation. On the world's racetracks, on the world's roads, depend on STP, your car care company. And by Chevrolet, who invites you to see today's Chevy, drive today's Chevy, live today's Chevy. And by the Pennzoil Motor Oil Company, quality protection, ask for it. We'll be back with more, including the updated point standings, after this. Rick Mears celebrating victory in a 500-mile race, and one of the prices that you have to pay if you're a spectator at a major sporting event is the traffic when you leave the racetrack. And Gordon, let's look at the final 25, and as we do, the top 25, what are your thoughts?
Well, my first thoughts, Larry, was a very safe race, which makes everybody very happy. We only had one incident that really amounted to anything, was Johnny Rutherford down here in turn 1, and he was also leading the race when it happened. But a little rain, I believe, came out right at that time, and he might have got a little bit high, and he got into the wall. But overall, nobody was hurt, and that's the main thing. Michael Andretti, he was really running well at the first part of the race and lost the wheel here coming in the pits. He must have evidently felt the wheel coming off and was able to detect that and come in. It would have been very serious if he'd went into turn 1 and that wheel had came off. But as much as Michael's been around, he felt the problem on the car and was able to bring it in. So overall, it was a very safe race, which makes everybody very happy.
Well, at the top of the show, we reviewed for you the current point standings. That's how they stood, a virtual 3-way lock. But this is how they changed after today's race. Al